So, what should we talk about here while we wait for people to come into the live stream? Going to the fair tomorrow. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go last day of Clatsop County fairs tomorrow, and the boys really want to go and hang out at the fair. Unfortunately, this year they have no rides. Like, there's no amusement rides at the fair. Like, whoever heard of such a thing? But anyway, they should have I guess they have a concert going on tonight, and really I think my youngest, he just really wants to go see the animals. That's what he's all about. He's big into, you know, the whole idea of having like the hobby farm and stuff. The younger one is really like, he's adamant about that kind of stuff. Hey, Dad, when are we going to get chickens? When are we going to do ducks? We're going to do all the stuff. And unfortunately, this year we were going to do ducks this year and chickens next year. And the ducks that we had them in a nice pen, and they were doing quite well. And then when I went to Miami to go to the Rebel Capitalist Live event, a raccoon got into the pen and killed all the ducks. So that was quite a bummer. So anyway, Freddie's really looking forward to going to the fair to go see all the animals. So I'm looking forward to doing that with him. All right, let's talk a little bit about lumber. Lumber prices are dropping and dropping dramatically. I mean, we're at 475 per thousand right now on the lumber futures price. And that is really low comparatively to what we have experienced over the last couple of years. And it's really interesting to think, like, here we are in the middle of summer and we have lumber prices at pretty much their recent lows, like something that you would typically not expect happening during the summertime. You would expect like huge demand during the summer. That's when the building season is taking place. It's when everybody wants to get the framing done before the winter time to make sure that they can close those houses into the weather and then work on the inside during the wintertime. I mean, that's typically how they work it here in the Pacific Northwest. You do most of your framing during the summer and then work on the inside during the winter. Now, framing happens all year long, so it doesn't matter really what season it is. It's just that most people want to build during the summer and take advantage of the better weather. But when we look at the lumber prices, it certainly doesn't seem to reflect a huge demand coming from the building industry. And that's not a surprise considering that there is higher interest rates that are deterring the home buyers, which then in turn kind of makes the home builders nervous. And most likely they're not going to be as, adamant about starting homes right now when there has so much uncertainty, taking place out there. So we're probably going to see the lumber prices stay somewhat low for the next few weeks is what I'm kind of guessing. But at some point the inventory is going to start tightening up, and that's really where I think the major concern is going to be coming, because right now at 475 per thousand, you have to think these mills are not making nearly as much money selling lumber at 475 as they were when it was up at 1,000 per thousand. So with the added input costs and transportation costs and all the other, stuff that goes along with trying to distribute lumber or even produce lumber, it makes it the input cost going into these lumber mills a lot higher, and therefore trying to sell it at 475 per thousand isn't exactly a profitable business for them. And you're going to find that mills are going to start curtailing development, and it's already happened. I mean, we were reporting on mill curtailments, going back, a couple of months now. But I'm going to leave a link down in the description. I've been following Madison Lumber lately. She does a great job on the Madison Lumber YouTube channel, and there's a link down in the description for it. I haven't listened to the whole video yet. I just listened to a few minutes of it, but it's quite good. And if you're really interested in lumber, I would suggest you go and subscribe to Madison Lumber and check out the videos that they put out. Very informative stuff. And then one thing that was mentioned in there that is something that I don't think I've brought up just recently is that when you have lumber prices as high as they are, something interesting happens up in the British Columbia area, up in Canada anyhow, is that they have what is referred to as stumpage fees. And these stumpage fees ends up equating to input costs going to the mills. It's pretty much what the government charges to cut down trees. And they base this figure on the previous 6 months. So I think they reset this thing like every 6 months. So right now, they're going off of the prices of lumber that we had been going through for the last 6 months, which was quite high. And here we are going into the lumber futures price where it's quite low. So the mills are not only going to have to pay more for the logs, but then they get less when they actually produce the lumber and sell it out there. So this is also going to put the British Columbia and the Canadian mills into a position in which that they are most likely going to go into curtailments as well. And then not to mention all the British Columbia fires that are taking place up there aren't helping the matters at all. So lumber is really going to get hit pretty hard here for the next few weeks, I'm assuming. And then we're going to find the inventory levels start to tighten up. And then you're going to start seeing the prices go back up. And that's going to happen during a time when you would expect lumber prices to be dropping. That's going into winter, which again, you think like wintertime is not exactly the time that you would want to be framing homes, but that's what's going to happen, is that it's not necessarily the builders that are doing it, it's the inventory levels and the position in which that most of those mills are going to be in. When that inventory tightens up, that's where they want to go, is that they want to have they want to have a higher futures price and a huge demand happening for it. Of course, it's going to be wintertime, so I don't know about a huge demand, but there will be demand for it. Now, again, you have to kind of consider all the different aspects of what's happening there, and a lot of it has to do with those home builders, like I had mentioned. And I left a link down in the description for you guys talking about that, and how even I think one of the home builders that they were quoting inside there said that they are probably going to be dropping their prices on floor plans. I forget exactly how he phrased it, but pretty much saying that the same houses that they're building today are probably going to be cheaper than the ones that they were selling just recently. And that seems to be the kind of the across the board narrative out there, is that people feel that the home prices are going to come down. How far they come down, that's the major question. Like, are they actually going to crash, or are they going to go back to reality? Because people, I think, are scared of reality, which they shouldn't be. I mean, what you should be scared of is a hot housing market that we just, are hopefully stepping away from and moving back to something that would be considered normal or normal-ish, which kind of means that prices have to come down quite a bit in order to get back to normal. Anyway, the other thing I wanted to kind of talk about and see if you guys wanted to talk about was the price of gold. Like, gold has always been known as this inflation hedge, right? Everybody looks at gold as saying you need to buy gold to protect yourself from inflation. But yet it didn't happen. It doesn't really seem to happen in that sense, that you can protect yourself from inflation with gold, because the gold price certainly didn't go up like a lot of the other stuff did out there. Now, granted, gold did go up, but it didn't achieve an inflation protection, I don't know, quality to it. Not that I would have expected it to. I mean, I would have figured it would have stepped up and stayed paced with things like lumber, right? Where people actually moved into gold to try and protect themselves from inflation. But that didn't seem to be the case. And if you look at that article down there, you have to also think it's not just necessarily what's happening in the United States and the attitude of the people in the United States, because we're the ones who are mostly concerned about inflation when it comes to the US dollar. Nobody outside of the United States is concerned about the devaluing dollar. They're more worried about a strengthening dollar, because that's what's really taking place, is that the dollar is strengthening all over the world, and it's causing some major pain with sovereign nations and corporations out there. But if you take a look at that article, you're going to find that a lot of the retail buyers of gold come out of China. And so you have to think, what is taking place in China? They're not concerned about inflation over in China. In fact, they are more concerned about a deflationary scenario when you consider what's going on with their property sector. So it's the Chinese buyers that I think are really keeping the gold price from really just exploding out there. If they weren't I don't know, if they were more concerned about inflation ruining their purchasing power, then you would probably find where a lot more people in China would be more adamant about buying gold to protect themselves from inflation. But I just don't think that's happening around the world. I think more people are probably concerned about the liquidity and paying their debts down, so they're not so much concerned about trying to get a hold of gold to protect themselves. They're trying to get a hold of dollars so that they can pay their debts off and not get ruined. That's really where I see things kind of happening. All right, what are you guys talking about? You forget to turn your head and cough when you squeeze that die. Oh, yeah, well, I was trying to get it more in line so that it wasn't some... I turn my head and cough, yeah. All right, thank you, John Velasquez, for the $1.99. Inflation 12% soon, woohoo, buy a home finally. Yeah, we'll find out. I mean, there's going to be... it seems that there's plenty of inventory on the housing, at least as far as new inventory coming into the market, coming from home sales. There seems to be a lot more out there, but as far as the significant price drops, I'm still waiting to see that. I'm anticipating it, I'm expecting it, but we haven't seen it quite happen yet. And I was also reading another article that said something about 50% of home buyers now have like are equity rich in their homes, and that's a scary thing to think about, because really if people feel that they are rich because of the equity in their home, that's like, it's not real wealth, it's the wealth effect, right? It's this idea that you have all this money but it doesn't really exist. It's kind of the same thing that happens in the stock market when people are looking, they're like, holy moly, man, like my stock portfolio went up, $14,000 in the last, for however many months. And now they feel like they have this $14,000. And so all of a sudden making bigger purchases are a little easier, or maybe being a little bit more frivolous with your money, just spending it a little easier because you feel that you have this $14,000. And that's the same thing that happens, I believe, within the housing market too, or at least with home buyers. When they buy, they think, oh man, look at all this extra money, like it's extra. But they feel that they have all this money because their home prices or the home value has gone up, and then they start spending that into the economy. Well, the exact same opposite thing can happen when the prices come down, when the stock portfolio comes down, is that people feel the actual reverse of this wealth effect. They feel negative wealth effect. They feel like they have lose money, right? So here they had this house, it might have gone up $100,000 over the last year or two or whatever it was, and they think, man, I got $100,000, but then it drops like, $20,000, $30,000, and now they're like heartbroken over it. It's like, oh man, I just lost $30,000 in the real estate market, even though they haven't even done anything to like try and get that money out or try and sell. But they just feel like they've lost $30,000 because their home price, their Zillow estimate or whatever has gone down. Well, when that kind of thing happens, both in stock market and the real estate market, it's that negative wealth effect, and people have a tendency to start pulling back on their purchases, right? They don't want to travel as much. They don't want to buy the frivolous things. They may not be so like adamant about buying that big ticket item. They're thinking, okay, well, maybe that big ticket item will drop in price. So this is like a self-fulfilling prophecy that happens from. It's the same thing that happens on the inflation that can happen on deflation. And that's really what we are going to expect here coming into the future, is more deflation. Now, I know a lot of people are like, man, that is not going to happen. But you have to take into consideration, okay, take into consideration, what is inflation, what is deflation. Inflation is the expansion of money and credit. Well, deflation is the exact opposite, is the destruction of money and credit. So if you have less people buying homes because they're taking out less mortgages, if you have people who are getting their cars repoed, that's essentially like a default on their loan. That's a destruction of money and credit, right? That's what's happening. And even at the Federal Reserve level, they're pulling in a lot of the liquidity. They're pulling in those dollars. They're letting the treasuries mature. They're letting the mortgage-backed securities come off their balance sheet. Now, it's not extreme by any sense. Like, it's not a huge amount that they're doing, but it's going the other way, right? It's not going up. They're not expanding their balance sheet. They're contracting it. And that's really going to be the deflationary scenario that comes into the future, is this tightening of the liquidity market, or the tightening of the liquidity causing pain in the financial market as people aren't able to come up with more dollars to pay their debts. And that's, it's going to be very damaging for them. Okay, let's start answering some questions here. Illiquidity equity case. Smash the like button. Yes, please do. There's 228 of you in here. Please go hit that like button, and it'll get the algorithm to spread the video around a little bit more. All right, 5-finger discounts, stealing it all. Bitcoin can only be measured by its 4-year moving average, not so much on a yearly. Yeah, somebody was asking me about Bitcoin today and kind of joking around. I was like, did you lose a bunch of money in it? And I was just like, no, I didn't lose any money in it because I haven't sold any Bitcoin. I don't sell Bitcoin, I only buy. And I'm buying it on a cost averaging basis, so I don't really care like what the price is. I'm just keep stacking on a regular basis. Now, I couldn't tell you what my average on Bitcoin is, but it is quite low considering that a lot of it was given to me, and a lot of it I had purchased a long time ago. I've been stacking for years. So no, I didn't lose any money in Bitcoin because I didn't sell any. All right, I'm just going to default on all my debt. I kind of had that same attitude at one time, and it didn't work out real well for me. I was going to default on pretty much everything, just declare bankruptcy and or whatever, because I just couldn't make my payments anyhow. So it's like, what difference did it make? And so I just kind of ignored all the debt collectors out there, and I just threw all the envelopes in the garbage, and I wouldn't answer the phone. And then one day I got a letter saying that, yeah, if you don't come down to this debt collector and work out a deal with them, they're just going to start taking the money right out of your check. And that was a big time bummer. So anyway, I had to go and start paying that dude a couple of $100s a month just to keep him from taking it from me. And I realized then, it was just like, man, I wish I had done something with all this crap a long time ago instead of ignoring it. But, to each their own. Maybe you can figure it out how to deal with it. Hey, Yui, do you like your coffee? Not particularly. It's gas station coffee. So it's not that great. Not this one. I like to drink the Thunder Muck from the Columbia River Roasters. I think they do a pretty good job on that one. And then the Sleeping Monk out of, I'm pretty sure they're out of Cannon Beach. They do some really good coffee out of there as well. So those are kind of like my two favorite coffees. But this gas station coffee, it's okay. It gives you the little pick me up after work that I kind of need. Sometimes I feel a little drained at the end of the day, and so I should probably drink more water is what I should do. Gold moves at a snail's pace. Maybe that's why boomers love it. Ha ha. Kidding. Hey, Matthew, what's happening? They will put liens on things if your name is on them. You will spend your life running if you don't pay your debts. Yeah, and it was bummer too, because like it destroys your credit. And so even though I had kind of taken care of a lot of my debts and bills and stuff like that, because you have this crappy credit, nobody wants to loan you any money, and it's hard to get a car, and it's just hard to just function through life like that. So I don't know. I mean, try to stay out of debt, and then if you are in debt and having trouble with it, just try and maybe talk with the debt, like the creditors out there, and see if they can, see if you can work out some kind of deal with them or something, just to keep it from getting into the pain that I had to deal with. It was a nightmare. All right. Let's see here. Is there any good questions? When the government threatened me, I became a career criminal. I don't regret my decision. Yeah, good luck with that. I'm not into it. I seen lumber at $4.75 earlier. If I can ever recover from the flu, I might be able to finish my wood fence and start on the shed. Yeah, well, your opportunity is coming. Like, it takes a little while for the lumber futures, once they come down, for it to actually reflect into the retail price of things. Obviously, if you're working with a supplier who has a high turnover, you're going to have access to cheaper lumber quicker than other people will. But it's going to take a little time for it to filter through the system, for all that expensive lumber to get, pretty much sold off, and the new cheaper lumber to come in. How long that takes is anybody's guess. I mean, I'm expecting it here at my yard probably within the next month or so to have, a turnover that can actually start bringing in the cheaper lumber, but it's already coming down. I mean, we've dropped our prices on plywood. Well, it peaked out at $80. We're at $39 a sheet right now on our half-inch CDX. 2x4s are at $6.99. The pressure treated is coming down quite a bit. The last stock order that I put on that one had a pretty significant drop to it. So, I mean, it's happening. It's going to take its time. I mean, if we had more building going on, if we had people who were a little bit more confident in what home prices are going to be, then we would probably have a lot more turnover taking place. But then again, if we had a lot more turnover taking place, then we probably wouldn't have as much inventory buildup as what we're going to experience here going into the future. So, all right. Anyway, moving on. Who are the suppliers with the high turnover? Home Depot, Lowe's? No, that's more about the region that you're in. It's not so much like the actual store itself. It's more of like the actual location that you're at. If you happen to be in an area that has a lot of building that's still taking place, then those suppliers are probably going to have a higher turnover. Here in Astoria, it's not so popular as far as not so popular, not so not so much like building taking place like you would see as far as like major developments happening, like, where they build 1,000 homes or something like that. That doesn't happen in our area. And then if you go up onto the peninsula over across the river, go up into Washington, then it's even more secluded up there. So like the lumberyard up there probably has higher price. Well, I know they have higher prices, but they have higher prices than they do in Astoria. And then if you go into Portland, they're going to have cheaper prices there. And you have to think like how much turnover does each one of these lumberyards have? The guys in Portland are going to have a lot higher turnover than they will from the guys up on the peninsula. All right. I'm in Florida, so I just checked Home Depot and Lowe's for lumber prices. Still waiting a bit. Yeah, I mean it's not that great. As far as lumber prices go, but they're getting better. So like now's the time that you want to start focusing in on it and paying attention, because your buying opportunity is going to be there in the next few weeks, month, whatever it is going to be. And then it may even be going into the wintertime just a little bit. But by that time, I'm thinking that the inventory levels are going to have tightened up and the demand will be there more than what people are expecting. I just have this feeling that it's going to be there, and the prices are going to start going up. And the reason why I guess I feel that the demand is going to be there is because I see a lot more customers coming through the door now. They're asking for a lot more contractors' names. They're asking for prices on windows and doors. Definitely a lot more deck packages going out now. So this is kind of telling me that it was just like, well, the demand is there. They're very interested, and if the price drops, then they're going to start flooding into it. But people have a tendency to make their decisions off of like the current event that's happening. So they see the lumber prices drop, they see it down at the retail, they're like, okay, now's the time to build a house. But that house takes like 6 months or even a year before they can start it. If you happen to be a guy who happens to have the property and a lot of cash, then maybe you can take advantage of it a lot quicker than say somebody who has to go and get a home loan to build that house. And that's where like the time lag comes. People make the decision because they see the price, but by the time they get there to actually purchasing, it's no longer that price and it's moved into a much different direction. Real estate isn't dropping 40%. No, I very seriously doubt it's going to drop 40%. Yeah, I agree with you, Matthew. It's not. Now, if it does drop 40%, I hope to take advantage of that situation. I'm going to be well prepared for it, but I don't know about well prepared for it, but hopefully I'll be prepared for it, because a 40% drop in real estate, that's going to be unreal. It's going to drive, like, you have to think, like, how many people would be driven into the real estate market if that was to happen? It's just like, it's kind of looking at silver, right? People say like, well, silver is going to go up to $500 an ounce. Do you realize the flood of silver that would hit the market, as everybody would be pulling silver out of every nook and cranny that they have in order to take advantage of that high price? All of a sudden the market would just be loaded with silver. There'll be plenty of it everywhere. So same thing when it comes to the price drop of houses. I mean, you get down to 30-40%, you're going to have a flood of people jumping in saying, man, I'm taking advantage of that shit. So I mean, I just don't see where it could drop that much. I mean, it could. I mean, anything could happen. I just don't think it's going to. My man, if it does, we have a field day. There are trillions sitting there in debt structures for default, aren't there? We have a field day. There are trillions sitting there in debt structures for default, aren't there? I'm not sure if I get the question there, Matthew, or the statement. Maybe I'm just missing it. I'm sorry, man. A macroeconomic book recommendations. I get that a lot. A lot of people ask me what books I have read, and it's pretty interesting to think. I have never read a book. I've read a book, but I don't read books, and I don't read books on economics. I've pretty much read two things on economics. One of them was The Creature from Jekyll Island by G. Edward Griffin, which, if you haven't read that book, is by far a critical read. If you want to know anything about macroeconomics and the Federal Reserve, you have to read The Creature from Jekyll Island. It's like, I don't even know if you can even quite understand everything if you don't understand the things that are in that book. And then the other thing that I have read was Cantillon's essay on economic theory, and those are pretty much the only two things that I have ever read of any kind of substance on economics. After that, it's pretty much been Federal Reserve speeches and articles and listening to a lot of lectures, other economists out there on YouTube. That's how I pretty much got all the knowledge that I have as far as economics go, is from those two books, and then listening to a lot of other people, and then reading the Federal Reserve speeches. The Federal Reserve speeches are very telling. I don't know why more people don't report on them or talk about them. I mean, they're boring and they're hard to get through, and they're actually kind of hard to understand at times. But there's more said in those speeches than you'll ever get from like a Federal Reserve president or governor on TV. They do not, like, it's almost as if they're talking two different things. Like when they get on TV and they start talking, it's all about controlling the narrative out there. But in the speeches, they actually talk about what it is that they plan on doing, or what it is that is occurring, and what happened in the past, stuff like that. The stuff that you see on TV or on the mainstream media, that's the forward guidance. That's the jawboning. That's the, trying to get you to behave and act in a particular way. But when you read their speeches, you don't see it the same way. So I recommend you read every one of the Federal Reserve speeches, no matter what they are, and try and get through them. If you don't understand something that's in the speech, then research that until you understand it. I mean, there was times when it'd take me, I don't know, 4 or 5 days to get through a speech, because I had to figure out what it is that they were even talking about. But now the speeches come a lot easier. So let's see here. Where do you catch those speeches? You just you can Google Federal Reserve speech or Federal Reserve speeches, and it'll take you to their website. And they post them there. They have links to every one of them they've ever done, like the most recent ones. So yeah, just type in Federal Reserve speech, and it should take you right to their site, that their website with the list of them there. Current housing debt structure isn't there. For 40% drop, 50% of the people in housing market have 50% equity. Sorry, I have to type better. Great content as always, Yui. Yeah, okay, now I get what you're saying, Matthew. Yes, absolutely, because that's right. Because they have that much equity in there, then they couldn't possibly drop it that much. That totally makes sense. I guess the way to kind of see it is that if you buy a house for $250,000 and it goes up 50,000, or it goes up, 100%, goes up to $500,000, you have more than a 50% drop that you can make on that house. Now, I know a lot of people will argue with me on that one too. They're like, no, if 100% rise is a 50% drop, that's 250. But the thing is that you've been making payments on it too. Right? So it's not $250,000 you owe on that house. It's a lot less, but it's gone up, to 500,000. So I get what you're saying. This is like, even a 40% drop in house prices still doesn't put you underwater. And that's really where the major concern comes in, as far as foreclosures and major troubles happening within the housing market, is if you see a lot of foreclosures taking place. So foreclosures generally come from people who are underwater. They can't sell the home, they can't make the payments on it. Right now, if you had a significant drop in house prices, the people who, unless you have purchased that house in the last year or two, like I did, but anyway, most people are a lot longer out on their home loans. Even if you saw a major house price drop, you're still not underwater. You would be able to sell that house even if you couldn't make the payments for it. So the foreclosures, the idea that people are not going to be making their payments or not being able to sell their house because they're underwater on it, it's just not there yet. Like that whole scenario, I just don't see it taking place yet. Thank you from California. Yeah, well, thank you for watching. Dude, I know my numbers. Yeah, I would definitely trust Lumberjack Landlord and what he's got going on. I mean, he definitely understands the game. All-Nighter, it's good to see you back, All-Nighter. Man, it's been a while. Yes, The Matrix was a proxy movie of our legal system and how coded it is. Foreclosures don't bother me. Surrenders bother me. When will you ding-a-ling figure? When are you ding-a-lings figure out the game? Okay. Are houses selling quick in Clatsop County? What are some ridiculous priced homes? Well, I wouldn't necessarily say they're moving quickly. And I don't know about the ridiculously priced homes. Like, when I look at all the house prices out there, they all seem very ridiculous to me. um, you know, just for example, like, hearing people say that they bought a $300,000 home and it's sold, 3 years later for $600,000. I mean, that seems to me so ridiculous, like out of place, like that wouldn't exist. There was a time when a $350,000 home in Clatsop County would have bought you a beautiful, like awesome, absolutely killer home. And if you wanted a fixer-upper, you could pick them up for $150,000. And now, when I say this was all occurring still within the last, 10 years. This could happen. There is nowhere to be found anything that even remotely comes close to a $150,000 home in Clatsop County. Now, you might find one out there, but it is so hammered that it needs to be torn down. So really, you're just buying the land at that point. And that seems to be the case for Clatsop County. Like, I don't know comparatively to what it would be like to some place that would be normalish, but to me, that seems very ridiculous. Let's see here. There is no money. 1970s was inflation and rush to buy gold and silver. In 1980, only 6 months took to 50% drop in the price of silver and gold metals, and it took 20 years to recover. Late 1990s. Yeah. Well, there was a lot that went into that too. And you also have to think, like, the 70s inflation was not the inflation that we are experiencing today. I mean, people back in the 70s, not only the United States, but everybody around the world didn't think the dollar was a good choice. Like, they were like, man, the dollar sucks. We want out of the dollar. Nobody wants the dollar. And including like the United States, they had a hell of a time trying to sell their debt in dollars. So they actually had to sell debt in German marks and Swiss francs. And that was like because so many people were worried about the dollar and the destruction or the devaluing dollar that came from it. So what other choice do you have other than to get into, like put all your money in a Swiss bank account or try to protect it from inflation or the destruction of the dollar by buying gold? So that's really where like gold got its run, is because people were truly nervous about it. The unfortunate thing is that when you have like things like silver, you have that Hunt brothers trying to corner the silver market, and that created a whole situation on its own. So here they are trying to buy up the futures market, and then they start, using margins to buy all this stuff, which basically means you need to borrow the money to put up in order to get in order to make the purchase on it. And they raised the margin requirements on them. They said you got to come up with more money if you want to continue this game, and they couldn't come up with the money. And if you can't come up with it, then you need to sell out. And that's really what happened there. And they had to start selling off all that silver, and it just caused it to crash. So it was, again, another manipulation game that was happening there. But I wouldn't say that it was a failed attempt at protecting yourself from inflation. I think it was more of like an irrational exuberance taking place there within the silver industry. Black Knight, okay. In Japan's depopulation, soon nobody's going to be able to make our jet skis, motorcycles, and Toyotas. I doubt that. I think there'll be people making them. So you don't sell Bitcoin? Do you buy anything with it? I mean, I guess not. I have traded a little bit of Bitcoin because somebody wanted some, so I was just like, okay, well, I'll trade you some Bitcoin. But I don't really spend it on. I mean, I don't really look at Bitcoin as like something that I'm going to be using right now, or not even really going into the future as far as like a currency goes. I don't have a good reason for it. Like, it's not a protection. It doesn't, and all that stuff. Like, I don't buy it for that reason. The reason why I buy it is because I find it to be a very useful thing. Like, the idea that you can make a transaction with somebody on the other side of the world and there's nobody that can stop you from doing it, that's pretty cool. Like, there's not a lot of stuff out there that can do that. And now you can just be an observer of it and saying, oh, wow, that's pretty cool. We'll watch and see what happens. Or you can actually start participating in that game by getting a hold of some of those things. Well, I found if you get a hold of some of it, you have a tendency to pay better attention to it. So do I feel that at some point in the future I will sell my Bitcoin? Well, yeah, probably. I mean, I guess. There's no point in buying it if you don't have an intention on selling it at some point in the future. but really I don't know what that would look like. Like I don't know, I don't have like a goal set in mind that if it achieves this particular level I'm going to sell it off. I don't have that kind of concept or thought to it. What I'm thinking more of is that I would like to be in a position that has Bitcoin in my portfolio when the future comes. Like I don't know what exactly I expect from it, but it would be better to have it and not need it, right? Than need it and not have it. So, I mean, the idea that like I see people like dumping all their money and in like retirement and mortgaging the house, taking out a mortgage on the house so they can buy Bitcoin. That stuff is crazy. Like I would never do that. I don't think I've ever spent more than say 50 or $100 on Bitcoin at any one time. Like I was doing $50 a week all last year, and I was doing it as an experiment. It worked out pretty well. I was buying, I had a little stock portfolio and I had a Bitcoin portfolio, and I was putting $50 a week to the two. And at the end of the year, the Bitcoin was up. It was up more than the stock market was. Now that has switched. The Bitcoin portfolio is now much less than what the stock portfolio is, but the stock portfolio is down quite a bit. And I still don't have any problems putting $50 a week towards those two things. I mean, I don't do it regularly like I was last year, but I do it pretty frequently. So I still buy Bitcoin today, and in fact, now's the time you would really want to buy it. Hey, thank you, Matthew, for the $20. I really appreciate that. At your yard, are you seeing declines in copper wire composition decking? What's what's the next commodity-based material that corrects in your opinion? Hmm. Um, yeah, I'm seeing. What's interesting about the composite decking is that when people would look at composite decking saying, wow, that's the expensive choice. Like people would be like, no, if you're wanting to spend top dollar on your deck, then you go into composite decking. But then when the wood prices ran up as high as they did, it made composite decking a lot more popular. So there was a bigger demand for it. So they started producing more of it. And then what do you have? Lumber prices come down and people are like, wow, I want to take the cheaper choice and maybe go to a wood deck instead. Well, now you got all this composite decking out there, all these options, all this production of it, because there was such a high demand for this composite decking during the lockdowns and stimulus packages being pushed out there. People wanting to, improve their surroundings, so they rebuild their decks or build new ones and stuff. But now you have all this decking out there that was in high demand, and we are having the same things. Like, we have vendors coming to us saying, hey, you want to buy units, get a better deal, kind of things. Those things, are starting to occur. So I could really see where the overproduction of composite decking may have taken place, and that you're going to find some pretty good deals, especially, when it comes to a stocking dealer, like somebody who, because like if you're a lumberyard, you're not going to stock every type of composite decking of every color, of every style. It's just there would be so much decking in your yard that you just wouldn't be able to do it. I mean, some yards might be able to do it, but most don't. Most lumber yards will probably pick one or two different colors of a style, and that's what they work with. Um, and then you order in all the rest of those things. So I can imagine that over the course of the next year or so, if there was an overproduction of composite decking, which I feel did take place, that you would see a lot more lumber yards starting to stock like the cheapest decking that's available from that particular company, because there's several companies that make composite decking, so like a lot of them out there. So that's really where I think like composite decking, you wouldn't see like across the board prices come down, but you may find some really good deals that are trying to be pushed out there and moved. And in that case, then yes, I do see that coming down. I don't think I've actually seen copper wire coming down yet, as far as like price changes of significance. But something that I did find interesting is that because you go around and you change sticker prices all the time, and one of the other people who was changing prices, they had come up and they were like, "Wow, is this right?" And it was like a huge price difference. It was something like, I think it was a wrench, and this wrench was like selling for $39 or something like that, and the new price on it was $14. And I was like, whoa, like it was like less than half of what the previous price was. And I couldn't figure out exactly why. I mean, the thing hadn't changed. It's still the same wrench. It's still everything about it. There's no difference in any of this stuff. And so I couldn't figure out exactly why it is that this particular item had dropped so much. And I'm assuming that it must have been a huge amount of it come into the warehouse or into supply. And it is, supply and demand. If you have an oversupply of it, then you need to drop the price in order to get it to move. But I thought, man, that is huge. Go from 39, it was not 39, it was like 32 something down to 14 something. And I thought, yeah, let's see more of that happening. All right. Thanks again, Matthew. I really appreciate that, man. QC Productions, thank you very much for the $1.99. It's time to move to bond. Crash is coming. To bonds, crash is coming. Well, yeah, and that's if you read that article down in the description, that's what you're going to see down there is that the Chinese buyers, they're not like this. It's the same argument that bond investors and gold investors or gold speculators, right, have had for forever, is that when you are buying gold, what you are doing is you are buying a speculation, the idea that you're going to be able to sell it to a person in the future for a higher price. When you buy bonds, what you are buying is something that's going to pay you an interest rate on it. I guess these guys want to park in the shade too. They don't know they're on a live stream. Maybe I'll tell them when they get out. But that's really what the bond market or the bond investors are saying, is that we need a return on our capital. We need a return on this money. But when you buy gold, you're not getting a return on your money. You're anticipating that you're going to sell it for a higher price going into the future. So anyway, so that's what the Chinese investors are doing right now, it seems to be, is that they're moving into bonds so that they can get that interest rate. Let's see here. Minix, thank you very much for the $9.99. Thoughts on rent inflation? I'm a multifamily broker in Florida and have seen rents rise 45% across the state year over year, consistent across all major markets. I think we will see stagflation for the next decade. Yeah, well, Cantillon says there's no better way to observe the abundance of money than through rents, right? That's what Cantillon was saying, is that when the rents go sky high, then you know that there's an abundance of money within the system. Now, I also have to think like remote working has really also done a number to the rents, because like that's one of the problems that we are experiencing here in Astoria, is that these people who were living in Portland or Seattle or wherever, and they got to do went into remote working. Well, they don't want to live in Portland. Portland's hammered, it's all ugly with the homeless people everywhere, and the crime is running crazy, and the Antifa movement was destroying shops or whatever. So they moved out, and they moved to like our area because it's like safe and clean and nice. And they took all the rentals away. There was no place to rent, none, like literally no place. And I don't know how it is that somebody who is a working class individual is supposed to find a place to live. Like, when I was looking at, a 2-bedroom house that was renting out for like $3,500 a month, studio apartments for like $1,500 a month. I mean, it's just ridiculous price. And that's what I really feel, is that a lot of people who are living here don't work here. Like, they don't have a job to go to. They just, fire up their computer and they work from their computer here. And that could be done anywhere in the world, essentially, but they wanted to live in a nice area, so they moved out here to Astoria, and now there's no place to rent. And I feel that if there was like less remote working taking place, then the rents may not be as bad in some areas as they are, especially like here. Hey, All Nighter, how's it going? Right on, Wayne. I'm glad you said something, though. I like All Nighter. I'm glad he's back, All right. Did I see another one down there? Nope. Okay, good. Where's the question? Hey, Simon, what's the square footage of your new house, man? 1450, I think is what it is. No, it's bigger than that. What am I thinking? I don't know exactly. 1450 was the last house I lived in. This one is like probably closer to 2000 if I remember right. I don't know. I'll have to ask my wife. She knows. It's a 4-bedroom house. It's pretty big. It's got a huge living room, huge kitchen, 2 baths. Is that where the Goonies house is? Is in Astoria? Yeah, it sure is. Do you expect the price of metal to come down? I do expect the price of metal to come down, but I haven't seen it yet. Like, I was really anticipating that when I was talking to some of my vendors, and they were like, telling me, they were like, yeah, well, things have slowed down a little bit, right? We're going into summer and things are, have cooled off. And I thought, yeah, this is going to do it. This is going to start getting the prices to come down because they've gone up like a lot. I used to sell just your standard 3-foot pole barn metal, like your, just regular old 3-foot metal, corrugated metal. I would sell that stuff for like two and a quarter a lineal foot, and now it's selling for almost $6 a foot. So I could see where there's a lot of room for metal prices to come down. I mean, I haven't seen it yet though. My tiny home is less than 200 square feet, but only cost me $6,000. Well, that's the way to go. That's definitely the way to go. Metals will come down, but the problem will be finding it. I don't know if you're talking. I thought you were talking building metal, right? Building material. As far as precious metals go, I don't know. Like, right now, I think that there's going to be more of a liquidity issue that people are going to be worried about, making sure that they can make their payments, their house payment, their car payments. And if that's the case, that there's a liquidity issue, then most likely they're not going to be moving into precious metals. In fact, they would probably be moving out of precious metals to get a hold of the dollars that they need to pay their debts. So as long as there's quantitative tightening, or at least the idea of quantitative tightening taking place, I don't think that there's going to be a big demand for metals, precious metals. The only thing that would kind of change that is if there was a shortage of metal to the point that somebody in production couldn't get it. Like, if you want to go make your cell phone or whatever device it is that you need silver for, and you can't find it, you will pay any price for it. But right now, I just don't see where there's going to be a huge demand for silver to protect people from like an inflation scenario or anything like that, or gold for that matter. I really think that more people are going to be worried about liquidity and getting into cash. Yeah. Roofing metal is powder coated. I thought it was baked on enamel. Is it powder coated? Oh, I don't know. Steel prices. I made steel for 20 plus years, 2+ tons of coal involved in 100-ton batches, along with alloys like moly, cobalt maybe, and vanadium. Vanadium? What is that? Vanadium? What is that used for? Do you think forced selling could crash the price of silver? We did briefly see $11 silver in March in 2020. Yeah, but remember when it hit that low? Could you find any dealer that had it for anything like under a $12 premium? I mean, it was like the spot price had fallen dramatically, but the regular price that you paid, it stayed elevated. I mean, I know like from the time I started buying silver, like, when I was like '09, I guess, somewhere around '09, and watching it run up to the $50 an ounce, like in 2011, I don't think I ever paid more than $1.50 premium on silver. And then now, if you could get $1.50 premium, I mean, that would be like the best deal you could find out there. There's no $1.50 premiums to be had. I mean, I remember picking up silver at a 35-cent premium, just 35 cents over spot price when nobody cared about it. So, do you see a forced selling? I don't understand like the forced selling. Like, are you forced to sell? All right. Vanadium is used in some forms of steel. Vanadium is for hardening. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. CB is, it's called, columbium. Is an important alloy and high strength low alloy. Oh, good to know. See, this is how much I know about silver, or steel and steel production. Check your postal mail. Cheers. Okay, I will. I was going to check that tomorrow, actually. I like buying seeded $50. Very cool. Yeah, I don't know. I seem to stick with 1 ounce rounds, and I don't know. I seem to buy like American Silver Eagles or the generic stuff from Sunshine Mint. Those seems to be like my go-to stuff that I like to buy. Um, and then like old silver coins, like the junk silver pre-64 stuff. That's a good one to have. I like holding onto that stuff as well. 300 paper ounces for every real ounce. Yeah, and that's the major problem with the silver price and why you see it so much lower than these do the gold. I mean, they pull silver out of the ground like 10-to-1 ratio to gold, which would put, silver at least what, $180 an ounce is where it should be at, but it's at what, $18 an ounce? So it doesn't make any sense when you think about it on the availability from pulling it from the earth, right? 10-to-1 ratio. For every ounce of gold, there should be 10 ounces of silver. But then you also think like 50% of silver goes to industrial purpose, it gets consumed. So that really only leaves like 5 ounces for every 1 ounce of gold for the investor out there. And you really think about it, it's probably even less than that. So I don't like the whole price of spot price of silver and gold and all that. It is completely manipulated, and that really gives us like a great opportunity to keep stacking silver at a artificially low price. I mean, comparing it to gold, it's like super undervalued. So anyway, if you like gold, what I would do is load up on silver and wait for that ratio to come back to something normal, even a 30-to-1 or 20-to-1 or 15-to-1. But if it ever got to 10-to-1, you can trade all that silver that you purchased at $18 an ounce, and you can trade it over for an ounce of gold that's worth thousands. Buying opportunity, yeah, for sure. Like, I have no problems buying silver, even with the high premiums that exist right now. I really don't have any problems buying silver. There's very little downside risk to it. um I don't buy a lot right now because I'm getting more into a cash position, because I really think that we're going to have some pretty severe downturn inside of stocks, or who knows what else out there. I mean, once you start feeling the pain, people are going to start selling their stuff off, and you're going to find some pretty good deals out there. Dollar cost average gold purchase, your children will thank you. Yeah, especially if you're buying it for your kids. Yeah, that's definitely the way to go, because then it's like it isn't any of your concern. Like, whatever you could have done with the money, it doesn't matter at that point, because you're handing something off to your kids, and it's going to be something that's very valuable to them when they go into the future with it. All right. Did I miss something back there? I just want to make sure. Nope. Okay. What? Okay, here's from Matt. What would you do with $200,000? I Man, at this point, like right now, I don't know if I would really do much with $200,000. Like, I guess I would probably split that up into some things. Like, me personally, I would probably pay a little bit farther out on my house, get a few more mortgage payments done out, so I would have a better cushion. Because that's really like a lot of people say you need to stack, have like 6 months worth of emergency funds, and I'm thinking, well, what if I just pay my house payment out 6 months? Like, if I can get that far ahead anyway. But if I could, instead of saving the money, but to actually make the mortgage payment out 6 months and keep that pace going, well, then, like, you can have some downtime. Like, you can, maybe if you get laid off, or if whatever, just for whatever reason you need the money, then you already have your house paid for. So you don't even have to worry about, like, making sure that you had the money or don't spend it on something else. It's already taken care of. Like, it's done. So I guess I would probably pay a good chunk of my house, a few more months out there a ways. I don't know if there's anything that I really feel comfortable like spending it all on. Like, I don't know if I would put it into the stock market or something like that. I think honestly I'd probably just sit tight for a while until the Federal Reserve decides that they're going to, reverse course on their monetary policies, which I don't think is going to happen just yet. Once they do, then I think the stock market's going to start moving up again, and real estate will move again and stuff. But they're going to take a lot out of it. They're going to take the irrational exuberance out, and people are going to have to feel some pain for a while. And when they do, they're going to start unloading their stuff. So you're going to want to be in cash. So at $200,000 right now, other than making some house payments or getting out of debt in general, I think I would probably hold the cash. I would hold the cash for a while. Yeah. Thumbs up for the channel. Yes, thank you, honestly. I appreciate that. If everybody could hit that thumbs up. There's 373 of you, 375 of you. If you hit that thumbs up, it'll send the video out there for more people to come in, and we'll get more people hitting the comment section here. Richard Cantillon essay, did it consider a dynamic market or a static one? Well, it considers a cycle that goes with it. So when you read Cantillon's essay, a lot of it is outdated because what he is talking about is like villages and wagons and like, you know, stuff like that. But once you get through like all the the details of what it is that he's trying to describe inside of the essay, and you get to the part where he is talking about the increase and decrease to money to a state, that section there, it's like, I don't know, 4 or 5 chapters that he's talking about. That particular section is very telling, and it talks about like, it talks about the cycle of things and how new money coming into the system creates this issue in which that the domestic manufacturers have to compete with foreign manufacturing. And this is really, you can see it happening throughout, you can see it happening in regions, you can see it happening in countries, you can see it happening with, you know, say maybe a particular industry or something like that. Like say the auto industry in Detroit, right? So like here you had this particular area, like the automaking industry, right? So you take the automakers, you put them in a particular area, you make a lot of cars in that area, you hire a lot of people to make cars, you got this major manufacturing distribution of vehicles happening from one area, one region. Well, then next thing you know, that's the new money pouring in, right? Because they're making all these cars, and all these people who work for car manufacturers, they're getting paid more. Well, once you start getting paid more, then what do? You start buying houses, right? You need to build houses. So now carpenters go to work. All these people start, you know, having these jobs, and this is the new money flowing into that region. And it works out great for everybody. But then one day car sales don't happen so much, and then next thing you know, you got like shutdowns and layoffs, and then complete, like, you know, wiping out of the entire industry, and like the entire car manufacturer, like an entire factory shuts down. Well, then that particular region doesn't have that new money pouring in any longer. Well, what happens? Everybody falls into poverty, right? Now you don't have nearly as much money floating through the system because you don't have this new money coming in. So that's just like one example of it. If you look at it on a bigger scale, the United States did the same thing, right? You know, here we were the biggest manufacturer and debtor or creditor of the world. Like, we made more stuff and sent it out to the globe, and we lent more money out to the globe than any other nation out there. As that new money was pouring into the United States, we increased our standard of living, and we started bringing in foreign competition because we enjoyed those luxuries that we were getting from having this new money coming in from all the manufacturing and distribution around the world. Well, as that foreign competition came in, it started driving out the domestic manufacturers. Well, now here we're sitting in this, you know, situation that we really don't have a decent manufacturing base here in the United States. It's actually really terrible. And we borrow money from the world. So, and we consume all this stuff. So it's Cantillon's effect that's coming to the end. Like, once they turn the new money off, we're screwed. Like, if we cannot sell our debt to either the Federal Reserve or to the world, then the whole system comes undone, right? Now, luckily, and I don't mean luckily in any kind of sense that it's a benefit by anything. All I guess I'm saying is that if we did not have the world reserve currency going in the United States, we would not be living anywhere nearly as well as we do. But because the rest of the world is demanding our dollars, that gives the strength to the dollar, and that gives us the ability to buy all their stuff. So at some point that will end. A lot of people think it's going to happen sooner than it is. I don't think it's going to happen very quickly. I think it's going to take a long time for it to occur. And the main reason for that is that so much debt has been written around the world. So all this debt around the world that's due in dollars, it doesn't have anything to do with us. It doesn't have anything to do with our corporations or our government or anything, but they're due in our dollars, right? So there's going to be a demand for our dollars. They have to get a hold of those dollars. And as long as they're still trying to get a hold of those dollars, our way of life will continue. But the moment that ends, it's all over. Um, Once oil trades are settled without dollars, it's all coming home to roost. Yeah, and I wouldn't say it's necessarily once oil is done, but oil is probably going to be the biggest death blow to the dollar. Is that once all oil trades are no longer done in U.S. dollars, yeah, it's going to be a very difficult time. I mean, I don't know how else to say it, but it's going to be very bad. Yeah. All right. Interest rates are going up. This is a time where weak companies are called and strong companies are weakened for old money to collect them. Um, so weak companies are called out. Yeah, well, I mean, really, it's Austrian economics, right? I mean, it's the free market doing its thing. It's the burning of the undergrowth. So just like if you can imagine like any kind of forest or anything, you got all these trees, and under the trees you have the smaller plants that grow. Well, those plants that grow, those could be brush, like the undergrowth that they talk about. Well, it can grow too much and then it dries out and then it gets to a point where it's a fire hazard, and then you light that off and all of a sudden you have this huge forest that's on fire, right? And it's due to all this undergrowth that's happening, and a lot of trees burn up, but you burn out all that undergrowth, right? So that disappears. That's like the malinvestment. When you think about the undergrowth, that's like the companies that shouldn't exist. Those are the zombie corporations. Those are the zombie people who took out far too much debt and can't afford to make the payments on it. So once you have this forest fire, it's like really devastating. Everybody's talking about bankruptcies and losing their retirements and crying in the streets and stuff. But once that fire goes out and it's done, now you have all this room to grow. You have all this room for entrepreneurs to come in because they haven't been competing with zombie corporations who are taking all the best talents and resources and everything else out there. They actually can go out there and do their thing and have like, a real competition, not like this fraudulent one where they would only exist because of increasing amounts of debt. You could actually have people who know what they're doing and doing the best at it and having an environment in which they can get it done with. 70% of what was I say? Financial advisors lose money. Wow. I mean, that's sad. That's sad to think. I mean, 8 years of Obama zombie. I don't know. I don't know if I could blame it on Obama. Like, a lot of people like to point at different administrations and say it was their fault, whatever. I mean, the whole economy was crashing when Bush left office. All right, so like, I'm not trying to blame Bush for it or say Obama was great, because I don't think either one of them did a great job, not in my opinion. But to think like, it's Obama's fault that, there was all this mess. Well, yeah, he inherited a mess and then he didn't do a really good job with it. And it wasn't even him who was doing anything with it. It was the Federal Reserve, and the Federal Reserve was firing up quantitative easing. So I don't really care what Obama was trying to do or what Bush was trying to do or what Trump was trying to do. And none of that stuff really matters. It just matters of what is happening and what the Federal Reserve is doing, because it's all about monetary policy. Everything else is like, I kind of look at it like this. You got politics and government, you got the market, you have the economy, and then you have the banking system. And all those things have an effect on the others, right? But it's the economy and the banking system and the markets that have the most. And I know a lot of people will probably argue with that. Government, I think, is a bunch of white noise that reacts in the market, in the economy. And then the banking system, I think, is completely separated from the government. And I know a lot of people argue with, but that's the way I kind of see it. Is like, government has like, they make this decision, like they try to make these decisions, and it pisses a bunch of people off on these decisions that they're going to attempt to make, but they don't really do anything. And then when they do finally make a decision, it has this major impact on the economy or on the markets. Then the banking system has to deal with that. So like, if you look at it in these 4 different regions, then, it makes it a little bit easier. At least it does for me. And like I said, when it comes to government, they're like at the very end of the line. I was like, have you guys done anything yet? Or are you just, just mouthing off again, because until they actually do something, then I don't pay attention to it. I'd much more rather pay attention to what's going on in the financial industries, what's going on with the Federal Reserve. I think there's a lot more that you can predict about what you need to do with your own life following that, as opposed to following politics. I think politics is just a waste of time. Meet Bingo. Yeah, come to Meet Bingo. Come hang out with me. Sunday nights, Workers Tavern, Workers Bar and Grill, starts at 6:30. China owns a lot of U.S. debt. If they go down, it would be like derivative meltdown. Yeah, I think if you have any major nation go down, it's going to cause excuse me, it'll cause a contagion effect that will just rip across all the markets. In fact, I think some of the things that are taking place in China right now are going to have a contagion effect and are having a contagion effect across, many nations. I mean, you think about it, even like the Chinese buyers coming into the United States right now to pick up the real estate, that very well could come from some of the problems that China is facing right now. I mean, it was one of the things that I had suggested, it was like a video or two ago, is that, because if you are a Chinese real estate investor and you are dealing with China right now with the property sector and you're like, man, this is ugly as hell, where do you go? Well, you go to the safest place there is in the globe. You go to the United States and start investing in there. And not to mention, what do you get paid if you're a real estate investor in America, in the United States? You get paid in dollars, which is really what everybody wants, is dollars. At least for now. Like I said, that won't last forever. But are you aware of the gold lumber ratio, and what do you think about the current state of it? I think that's something to follow after we get through the bullwhip effect. I think that I don't think that's nearly as good of an indicator as it once was prior to all the shortages that has happened. And I think that's probably going to be a good indicator again once we get over the other side of it. Now, if you're not familiar with the lumber gold ratio, it really shows like how much lumber you could buy with an ounce of gold. And the more that contracts, like the more lumber you can get with gold, it shows contraction in the economy. As far as what I can tell, is like people are more concerned about protecting their wealth as opposed to going into industries and building up the economy. Like, I don't know if that's like, if you can imagine lumber as like the industrial side of things and gold as the saving banking side of things, if you see the gold ratio where you can buy more lumber with gold, and that's people worried about what's going on in the economy and trying to protect themselves. If you see like am I saying that right? Well, yeah, if you can see where there's less lumber that you can buy with gold, that means that more people are moving into industry. So, and it's not an exact science. I don't know if I'm describing that exactly the way like some people can. I mean, there's some what is the name? What is the name of the guy who does the gold ratio stuff? He's really good. Grayland or something like Gayland or something like that. The guy is really good. He talks a lot about it. But I think that's probably going to be a better indicator. Like I said, once we get through the bullwhip effect and get this oversupply undersupply thing figured out, then that'll be a much better indicator for what's going on in the economy. Thoughts on the job market? Outside of like there still being a very tight job market, I still look around, everybody's looking to hire people. Again, I think that this has more to do with the fact that we have a lot of zombie corporations operating here in the United States who have hired people that really shouldn't have a job. Like, that business shouldn't even exist. And if the zombie corporations start failing, you're going to find that those people are going to be moving over to the viable corporations, and all these help wanted signs will come down. And the whole tight job labor market thing is going to come to an end. Love to all here, I see. Well, right on. Michael Burry also mentioned that the bullwhip effect, or the bull effect era, is here, just like how you said. How should one invest during the bull effect area? It's funny how Michael Burry comes up with this bullwhip effect after. I'm not saying that I was the only one out there saying it, but he was like, he was talking about how like inflation is going to kill everybody. I was reading the articles on it, and now all of a sudden he pops off with this bullwhip effect and how this oversupply undersupply thing. It was just like, you need to be calling that stuff out ahead of time. Like, if you're going to call out the bullwhip effect, do it early, before it happens. right? Like I was trying to, I didn't even know about the bullwhip effect until like the viewers were telling me about it. I was describing what I was seeing happening in the lumber industry, and it was somebody else who says, man, what you were describing is the bullwhip effect. I went and read up on it. I'm like, yeah, that's exactly what's happening here. So, like I said, I learned way more from you guys than you guys learned from me. And whoa, holy moly, Joe. Wow, man, not even a question with it? Thank you so much. You just sent me $199? Oh, bro, thank you so much, man. I, I jeez, thank you. All right. What's the ETA for a crash? Uh, I don't know. That's too hard to try and determine. And like, what is a crash? Like, what is it a crash? Is that relative to you, or is it like to like the economy, to like who's experiencing this crash? Because somebody's crash might be somebody else's blessing, you know. um I mean, as far as like a bottoming to the market, to like maybe say the stock market or to the housing market, if you see a downturn in that, that's going to be difficult to try and pinpoint because we really don't know how far the Fed is planning on pushing it. Now, a lot of people think that the Federal Reserve is going to like instantly reverse, and I don't think that's going to happen. I think what the Federal Reserve is going to do is probably keep interest rates elevated during a time that we see inflation come down. And that would be typical, like you would think, okay, once the inflation is gone, then the Federal Reserve would reverse course. But they're not shooting for a target. So a lot of people think like once they get to their target, then they're going to adjust their inflation rate or their interest rates down. I don't think they're going to do that. I think they're going to go for their 2% target, their target, and then go for the actual inflation that they're going for, which is a 2% average inflation, not a target, but an average inflation. So in order to get that average inflation to the 2% target, not necessarily a 2% target inflation, but average inflation, I know this is kind of confusing, they're going to have to take like records back from a ways, right? Like how far back do you make this equation? Does it go back 2 years, 5 years, 10 years? How do they come up with an average 2% inflation? Did it start like from the pandemic? Like, is this where they're going to do their 2% average? So if that's the case, well, inflation's running, you know, I don't know, what do they say, like 9% or something? Well, then it's going to have to sit down at 2% for a long time in order to get the average inflation down to 2%. Or it might even have to go even lower than 2% in order to get the average inflation to the 2% target. So this is really where I think a lot of people are going to get confused about the monetary policy coming from the Fed, is that the Fed is shooting for a 2% average, which means that as inflation falls, they're going to keep interest rates elevated, much against anybody's idea of what they would normally do. And they're going to, of course, blame the Fed for this too, saying the Fed is causing all this pain and they're doing it on purpose. And if they just reverse course or whatever, reverse the interest rates, everybody would be much happier for it. But they don't really care about that. They care about a 2% average inflation rate, however they happen to get it. I don't know. Did I say that right, man? Well done, Joe. Yeah, thanks again, Joe, man. That just totally made my day. That is awesome. Thank you so much. Dude meant to go $1.99. If that's the case, Joe, let me know, man. let me know if that was an accident. I can't imagine that, but gee whiz, thank you. Joe's back there screaming, no, $1.99. Holy heck. Well, a lot of people are saying that. Well, I don't think it was a mistake. Holy moly, man. He just did it again for $33. Thank you, man. Gold is fun, silver in hand, the best. Spend your money before inflation rises too much where it null it out. Sitting on money eventually leads to either new currency or leading to less things you can buy. YouTube sucks. Well, thank you, Joe. Yeah, I definitely would agree with you. Don't sit on money for any length of time. Like, you don't want to sit on it for, you know, years and years and years and years, expecting it to be something that's going to be valuable for you going into the future. The dollars deteriorate over time. There is very little doubt about that. But when you're coming in, and not to, you know, push back against it, Joe, because I really appreciate the $240 or whatever. Oh my gosh. But when you come into a situation like this where you have the potential for stock market downfall, housing market coming down, cars, like, you know, the repo of cars is starting to escalate. This gives you a buying opportunity that you need cash for. So you need to be in cash when that happens. After that, yeah, there's no point in being in cash. Like, get out of cash as much as, you know, and get into investments or, you know, decent speculations that you think are going to go up in price. So I totally agree that being in cash for any kind of length of time is not good. But for this short term, I think right now cash is the place to be. And that's just my opinion. I mean, I could be really wrong on this stuff, guys. I mean, I could be completely wrong on it. But from the narrative that people have out there, from the things that I'm seeing, I really do think that, you know, coming into the short-term future here, there's going to be some buying opportunities. Man, Joe, thank you. A $66 super chat. I have to send 2 super chats to say what I want. Kinda. I hope you're doing well. Joe, I am doing really well, man. Thank you so much for asking. You know, there was a time in my life where I didn't feel like I was doing well. I was drinking a lot. I wasn't making a lot of money. I was deeply in debt. I was very frustrated with things. And I don't feel that way anymore. Like, for one, I quit drinking, and that did a number. That totally made me feel a lot better about things. And getting out of debt was probably one of the biggest reliefs that I had ever had, like weight off the shoulder kind of feelings. After that, like after I quit drinking and after I got out of debt, I realized that life is pretty good, you know, and it's it's not as hard as it you know, as a lot of people make it out to be or is when you don't. How do I describe this? Because it's not necessarily the money, right? Because I'm still kind of broke. Like, I don't really have a whole lot of money. I just recently paid all my taxes, you know, off and stuff like that. So I don't have like a whole lot of money sitting in savings. But it's not that. It's like the not stressing of the day-to-day stuff. Like, a lot of people don't realize that stress, it doesn't matter like what it is that's causing the stress. And I've said this before, like if you are a complete broke, like you have no money and you are late for work and you run out to the car and you realize it has a flat, that is like a devastating feeling. Like you don't know how you're going to get to work. You don't know how to fix this flat. Like you don't have the money for it. You don't have a spare. You don't have like, you know, it's like, man, how do I even like figure this thing out? And like your world is like crumbling around you over this stupid flat tire, right? That's all it took was a flat tire, and it's now you're hammered. Well, that stress level is the same as somebody who has, you know, $100 million and they're trying to make a $10 million deal and it's falling through. Like that stress level is the same. It doesn't matter if it's like, you know, a flat tire or if it's a $10 million deal. The difference is that now I don't stress over the flat tire. There was a time when that flat tire would have been devastating to me. It's no longer devastating to me. And that's the major difference in my life and what has changed. It's not necessarily the money, it's just the situation that I've put myself into, and that I'm no longer like stressing myself out over the things like flat tires or making sure I have enough gas money for the week and stuff like that. It's conditioning. Like it's not a matter, and again, it's not a matter of like how much money you make. It's more about how much money you save, or how much, like how low your cost of living can be. Like I could go and buy a new car. I drive this old 99 Toyota Corolla. It runs great, but I could buy a new car. I could even go buy the new Camaro if I wanted to. I could even buy the fancy new Camaro, but I don't want to do that because I don't want that payment. I don't want that stress in my life. I like having this 99 Toyota Corolla, and if somebody sideswipes it, I'm upset for 30 seconds. Like that is it, you know, and then I move on with my day. So conditioning your life to be in that kind of position, that's really what I've learned over the last few years, and then not to put myself back into that position, you know, by falling into the temptations of drinking or, you know, taking out lots of debt or something like that. I mean, these are the changes that I've gone through. So thank you for asking. I am doing very well. And thank you so much for those super generous super chats, man. I mean, that is just, I can't thank you enough, man. That is so awesome. Okay, let's find another question here. Here's a different perspective. Do you think nothing happens? A lot of people have a lot of equity in assets, and whoever bought their home in COVID got it at a record low rate and makes no sense to sell. Yeah, and that's the other thing. Like, I look at the interest rate that I got on my home, which I mean, I just purchased it, not even a year ago. I mean, it's going on 8 months. So I'm one of these people who bought one of the expensive homes, but I didn't have any other choice. And a lot of you, follow me on the channel. You saw what I went through when I was told that the place that I was renting was going up for sale, and I couldn't find a place to rent. I had to buy. The interest rate that I got on it was really low. It was like 3.25%. And now that same house, even with even at the same price, I mean, I don't know if I would necessarily, because I was at the end of what they were going to be willing to lend to me, and so I don't know if I would have been able to have enough income to make that payment. I mean, I guess, if you considered like the YouTube part of things, I may have had enough, but for the most part, I don't think, like, as just an average working salary from between me and my wife, I don't think that we would be able to afford the payments today on the same house at the same price with the interest rates that they are today. So a lot of people are not going to be very eager to sell if they cannot buy another house at a low interest rate. So, if you're swapping, a $600,000 house for a $500,000 house, but the payments are more, then why would you do that? It doesn't make any sense. Okay. Great gas mileage in a Corolla. Yeah, and I haven't tuned it up, and I don't know why I never tuned it up. So, but it still gets like 28 miles to the gallon or something like that. It's just killer. Like, there's no way that I could ever give up this vehicle. Like, it would cost me so much money to get rid of this car, and then I can save an insane amount with it. So it's just, yeah. You must be West Coast with how bright it is. I am the West Coast, so that's the Columbia River, and I'm about, I don't know, how far is it from the bridge to the ocean? 10 miles, maybe? Speak of domestic manufacturing. Did you see the story about the Samsung proposing 9 additional chip plants in addition to the 17 billion plant being built in Taylor, Texas? Yeah, I have seen those articles and stuff, but my only concern with those things is that they won't be profitable, and that in order to keep them functioning, you're going to have these huge tax breaks or tax incentives, and like where they don't pay taxes or something, or even have government subsidies to keep them operational. That's the problem that I see happening. I don't think this investment is going to be a good one, at least for profit wise. Now, a lot of people, they just kind of blow that out of the water, saying that it's for national security reasons. Okay, I can go with that, but that's going to come at a major cost, and it isn't going to be profitable, and at the end of the day, businesses fail. So bullwhip dat ho. Huh. Okay. The Fed is going higher than people think. Yeah, I think they are too. I think they're going to raise the interest rates beyond neutral. Like right now, they're claiming to be at neutral, this 2.5%. And I would not be surprised if you see the Fed funds level at 3.5 or even 4. I don't think that they will be there for very long, for any kind of length of time. And what I mean by that is not going to like reverse course in weeks. It would be like, over the course of a quarter or two. But it's not going to be like, I can't imagine them keeping that elevated for that long of a time. Like, once you get to that 3.5%, it's going to be so constricting to the economy. And 6 months after that, like, it's going to be a lot of pain felt, and people are going to be screaming. And so, like, I don't know how far for how long, but I could see where they would go above for at least some time. Not a lot. Higher than that, UE? Higher than what? Higher dollar homes will come down the most percentage points. Let's see here. A proposed A proposed northern Minnesota nickel mine has signed a deal with Tesla. Talon Metals announced Monday it's entering into an agreement with an interesting article to read. Hey, email me that article. I would like to read it. UE, is there any chance that the U.S. government will end up forgiving student loans or even a portion of it? Okay, I don't think so. I think I think they might do a little bit just to try and make sure that the credible threat is there, that people believe that they'll do it. And then they'll use that as leverage, like vote for me and you'll get your student loans, taken away or like, dissolved or whatever they want to try and call it. But the problem with it is that what it does is you got to understand like why they wouldn't be able to do it. And the main reason why they, at least in my opinion, and this might change, and this may have changed over the last few months, and I just don't realize it, but student loans are backed by are in securities, right? So the student loan has been securitized into what they call student loan asset-backed securities. They're called slabs, literally, right? It's a funny name for them, but that's what they're called. And these student loan asset-backed securities, they sit on the government's, and not the Fed, but the United States government, because those are two separate things, right? So it sits on the United States government's balance sheet as an asset, okay? So now if you go and you look at the United States balance sheet and you look at the assets that they have, the financial portions of that asset, so you got all this land, equipment, gold, whatever you got, right, that are your assets, the financial portion of the assets, these are all like the financials, like the bonds, right, that the government owns. Of those financial assets, 50% of that is student loan asset-backed securities. So it doesn't make up like this, it's not like half of the Fed's balance sheet or the asset portion of the Fed's balance sheet, but it is 50% of the financial portion of the balance sheet, which is still a huge amount, right? So now you have to think, if this is sitting on their balance sheet, on the Fed's balance sheet, and you got assets and liabilities, right? And if your assets and your liabilities is what's judging your credit rating, so if your liabilities are a lot higher than your assets and your credit rating goes down, and if your assets are a lot higher than your liabilities and your credit rating goes up, well, here you got these student loans on this balance sheet, and you got your assets and liabilities, and all of a sudden you just took out all these assets, and now your liabilities are a lot higher. Your credit rating goes down, interest payments, start going up because people are no longer as keen to loan you money and stuff like that. So this is really where the problem comes in, is that you can't just take these loans out of the system, right? Because it'll cause the assets to fall on the balance sheet and the liabilities to increase. So I don't know where it is that people come up with this idea that the government is just going to like disappear these student loans. It can't work like that. It doesn't. Now you can have like, hey, we're going to take a bunch of tax dollars and take these student loans off the balance sheet. There's that way of doing it. You can do it through private, like just people is like, hey, we raised a bunch of private funds and we're going to buy those student loan asset-backed securities off of there. They could try and sell the student loan asset-backed securities to an organization that's going to like just say be done with it and just not take any money back. There's those kind of things that happen, but you can't just make them just disappear. Like they can't just go away. And that's where I think a lot of people are just misunderstanding the whole idea that the government can just take everybody's student loan away. They can, but they can't. Without just completely destroying the credit rating, causing their liabilities to go way off. So anyway, that's the way I see it. So let's see here. Thank you very much, Aaron, for the $5. Yield curve inverted by most since .com bubble. 2-year, 10-year inverted by 50 basis points. Thoughts? I'm a little leery of the 2-year, 10-year right now, just because of how obscured the market has been, especially with all the quantitative easings and stuff like that. Now, of course, we have examples of it, just like you were saying, from the .com bubble. But really, I think the 2-year, 10-year, that inverted and everybody started screaming recession. I was looking at the 30-year, 5-year. And the reason I was looking at the 30-year, 5-year is because that was what Alan Greenspan had said when somebody had asked him about the 2-year, 10-year inversion. Because it would, what had happened, what was it, like just before the pandemic, it had inverted. So what was it, like towards the end of 2019 or something? So when we saw it invert there, they were talking about the inversion, and they asked Alan Greenspan about it, and he was like, "Well, I do see the 2-year, 10-year being a very good indicator of a recession. Like this is definitely something to keep an eye on." But what he said he would like to follow, what he likes to follow, is the 30-year, 5-year. And when you see the spread growing between these two, that's corporate management's willingness to invest, right? And that's what he was looking at as far as his recession indicator, and not necessarily an indicator, but coming out of a recession, I think, is probably more of what he was referring to. But then you can just think about it opposite of that. If you see the 30-year, 5-year, the spread on that shrinking or even invert, well, then that would be corporate management's less willingness to invest, or even beyond that, if it goes into, it inverts, that would be like them negatively thinking about investing or willingness to invest. So although the 2-year, 10-year does give you that idea of like people are very nervous about the short term and that they want a higher interest rate or a higher yield on those bonds, and not so much worried about the 10 years going out that far. And that's the reason why you see like the yields on the short term go up, and that's the inversion taking place and people being nervous about the short term. I think looking at that particular thing is definitely an indicator of a slowdown in the economy. But watching the 5-year, 30-year, that's my new indicator, because that inverted prior to the 2-year, 10-year, and I called that out. And sure enough, we know it wasn't but a few weeks later or a month later or whatever that the 2-year, 10-year started to invert, and everybody started talking about recession. So I'm following the 5-year, 30-year, and it seems to be doing a little bit better for me than the 2-year, 10-year is. But thank you for the $5 super chat. I really appreciate that. Holy moly, Joe, man. I don't know what to say, man. I cannot thank you enough, dude. That's incredible. You should only buy a house when you want to expand your household. Be fruitful and multiply. Buy up all the land next to where you want to plant yourself and your family. Then join your local government and fight land tax. You're welcome. See, now Joe knows how to do it. Like Joe is obviously somebody who knows what he's doing here. Um, and yeah, I kind of agree with that. If you're gonna buy a house, then you should be buying it for the right reasons. Buying it to try and make money is, I mean, it works for a lot of people, but for the most part, a home should be just that. A house should be the home, the place that you live, the place that you raise your family. And at that point, it doesn't really matter where the prices go. It could go up, down, or sideways. It doesn't mean anything to you, because it's your home. It's where you're going to live, and whether the price goes up or down doesn't make any difference to you. Thanks again, Joe, man. I really appreciate it. Are we going to see a great recession? I think so. I think it's going to be pretty damaging. I think it's going to be pretty damaging for a lot of people out there. Especially those who are really strung out on debt. Like if you are barely making your payments right now, the future is going to be very difficult. I would figure out whatever it is that you can do to either, one, come up with more money at the end of the month, or get out of debt. Lower your living expenses or something. See, that's where really where I've like living broke my whole life. That's really kind of been a benefit for me now that things are going better for me, is that I still live broke. Like I literally, other than using the PayPal money that you guys send me to take the family out for ice cream or Chinese food or something, I hardly spend money at all on anything. Like I try to do things more now to, enhance the experience for the family. So we go out and do things like we went to the museum, we go to the we try to go to places and do things, stuff that I'd never done before. But for the most part, like I don't spend money. Like I hold on to all my money. And like even when I go to the store, when I bought this coffee, he was just like, "Oh, you got a penny?" And I'm like, "Give me my penny, man." I mean, I'm not walking out of here without it. It's fine. I mean, I pick up all the loose change that I see laying on the ground and stuff. I do not let any of that stuff by. I hold on to I'm a saver. Do you think Let me see here. Do you think 401ks are going to be ruined? I think a lot of people's are. Yeah, I think the stock market is going to go down in a way that is going to be very damaging. Now, it really depends if you're talking about ruined to the point that they're like ruined, like gone. No, I don't see that, but I think a lot of people are going to be damaged because they're going to want their 401k for retirement, and they're going to be in a bad timing. to get it. Like if you're contributing to a 401k and you're in your mid 20s or something like that, I would not be concerned about that one little bit. In fact, I would be like kind of stoked about that, knowing that you'd be able to contribute into your 401k during a downturn in the markets. That's really where you want to be if you're in the early, your early investment stages. Yeah. Let's see here. I don't know you, Joe, but I appreciate you. Thanks for just being you. Yeah, thanks, Ash. Thanks for giving him the love sign there, because I do appreciate this, guys. I mean, just I love hanging out here with you, and I love doing the videos, and I just love talking and just interacting and stuff. But when you get something like that happening too, it's like overwhelming feeling, UE, you are so humble. Cheers from Canada. Well, thanks, guys. I mean, I can only be honest with you. I mean, that's the only thing I really have going for me, is that, I mean, I didn't go to school to learn all this stuff. I didn't do well like trying to start businesses, or just even like do well just trying to be an adult, but coming out here now and, just trying to get my shit together and to do right, I mean, it's like you have to face up to it. You have to face up to the things that you did wrong in the past, and you have to recognize, what it is that's going good now, that you have to keep pushing. And yeah, thanks, guys. Thanks for being here. What about savings? Pull the money out. I don't know. Like, you're talking about pulling money out of the bank. If I didn't have like any ambition to say like get into real estate, or to maybe start a business or something like that, then I would say, yeah, pulling your money out of the bank would be just fine. Like, just sit on it, because the bank doesn't offer you anything other than convenience. And so you can really like deal without a bank account. But if you want to like buy a house, or take out a loan, or start a business, or do something like that, you really have to have proof of where that money came from. And if it's sitting in your bank account, sitting in your savings account or something, they don't question it. They don't question where the money came from or why you have it. So that's really like a benefit to life if you plan on doing something like that. But if you're like, I'm not starting a business, and I am not taking out loans, I'm not doing any of that kind of thing, then yeah, there's really no point in having money in the bank unless it's for convenience and safety. I mean, there is like the risk of your house burning down or somebody stealing your stuff, and if you have cash in there, then it's gone. So there is that safety part of things too, that it's locked up in a facility like a bank. But then you have to worry about the bank going bankrupt, and whether or not if it's FDIC insured. And Matthew was actually, maybe if you're still watching, I wanted to talk to you again about that, what you were talking about as far as another insurance or something that was available. And we had talked about it, and it kind of like slipped out of my mind. I can't remember what it was. But I remember it was a good conversation. It was something I was supposed to ask my bank about. Let's see here. Drink too much is taxing. Drinking. Yeah, because I just recently lost, somebody close to me that I'm sure it was due to the drinking. I haven't gotten the details yet from it, but I'm sure it was due to the drinking. And, it's so funny. It's not funny in anything. It's not funny at all. What is interesting is that when I talk to other people who had drank heavily in their lives at some point, and then they either came out of it, or they don't drink like they used to, or something like that. But when you talk to people who were really in the thick of it, like really into that heavy drinking at one point in their life, and you go and you ask them about it, it was just like, so when you were in the darkest days of your drunk, and you knew that you were not doing well, how bad did you really think it was? And everybody had the same thing to say. Didn't feel like it was that bad at the time. Like, at the time, it doesn't, like, you will self-justify it into being all right no matter what. Like, you will justify that drink, you will justify your actions, you'll justify everything to say, nope, I got this together, I'm holding on, I got it all right. And then once you sober up and you come out of that, and a few years go by, and you look back on your life and you think, Oh man, how bad was that? I mean, that was pretty damn bad. But at the time, it didn't feel like that way. And so, drinking is very taxing on you, and it doesn't. I mean, both financially and just mentally, it drags you down. Especially being a heavy drinker. That's like if you're just enhancing your experience, for the on a Friday night or something like that. I don't have any problems with drinking. Like I don't have like that's what people do. It's when you can't stop, right? It's when you have a six pack in the fridge and the first one goes and then they're all gone, right? There's this like that's a problem, and it will ruin your life. It just or at least you won't be able to advance very well. I mean, after I quit drinking is when I started progressing. Is when I started being able to do things. All right. Two words: Washington Mutual. Okay. I knew drinking was bad, but you're right. It was part of my identity and thought it was how I made money. Was working at BlackRock at the time. Why YouTube cut Joe R off? YT sucks. I'm not sure. I mean, I understand YouTube sucks, and I understand like a lot of people would like me to move over to another platform. The only thing about moving over to other platforms, and I think a lot of you would probably go over with me, or at least posting these things on other platforms. The thing about YouTube is that there's really no other platform that's going to have the reach like YouTube does. I mean, YouTube gets out there and it finds the people, and I mean that's the reason why I'm so adamant about being here, is that this is like the way that I could get out there to the most people, and really I think the comment section does great job for bringing up the ideas and topics that really need to be addressed that YouTube may want to censor. I think the comment section does a pretty good job of filling in that gap. You need your money in banks to do anything. Um, well, not to do anything, just to do a lot. Drinking saved my life. Well, there you go. Here's one. I'm working at a miserable job at the time, and the drinking helped me coping, and then eventually got me fired. Best change to my life for the better. guess that's guess that's one way of looking at it. You know, I never really thought about it that way, but really you have to go through some pretty devastating downtimes in order to have that ability to become great. And I'm not saying that people can't just become great without going through some bad times, but when you find like most high performance people that you meet out there, or like people who have this like higher status to them, I don't know as far as good examples of it, but you hear them talk a lot, especially when it comes to like famous actors, people who have succeeded well in like making movies or something like that. Almost everybody, all these high performance people out there, almost all of them talk about a devastating time in their life where they felt like they had hit rock bottom and that there was no recovering from it. Almost every one of them talk about this, and it's almost as if you have to go through this devastating time in order to have the ability to achieve greatness, like to be able to pull yourself out of that gutter, to pull yourself up to a even plane, and then try to advance beyond that. Like you have to overcome all these obstacles in order just to become like even normal or level, and then once you have done that, you have the power and skills to really just go just about as far as you want. um I don't know if I'm explaining that right, but that's kind of the way I see it. Joe, you're just nonstop today, man. Thank you. Yes, you are correct. YT is a good, but you need to expand. I can send a super chat at lower levels. Okay, I agree, man. So let's see. I think I have an Odyssey account up and running. I think I have Rumble going. I don't know if I have my friend Chandler helping me out with a lot of this stuff, and so I don't know if she's been actually posting them there. Part of like part of like having these videos automatically uploaded to Rumble and Odyssey is you have to give out like you have to log into these particular things with your account. And because my YouTube channel isn't necessarily attached to the Gmail account that I use, it's attached to another account that I had. It was a different one from this farming thing that I was doing back in the day. So it's not like the same account. Like if I had it all on the same account, it would make it a lot easier, but it's not the same. So I would have to give out like my personal like email to not that I have a problem with Chandler having my personal email because there's really nothing there, but it's not like part of like my business thing going with YouTube, if that makes sense. So I can't just automatically upload them as easily as I once thought. So I don't know if she's just like going to manually upload these things to those, but I should be more present on Odyssey and Rumble going into the future. And I'll talk to her a little bit more about that and see if we can't make that happen. Let's see. Is spot price in hand or spot price on paper? Uh, I are we talking like? I guess are we talking like metals, precious metals or something? Because isn't the spot price basically where the refiner's at, and then after that it's like it starts going into premiums? I mean, at least that's kind of the understanding that I had from it. All right. Thank you very much. Makeshift player, $5. Very much thank you for the super chat. Love the chill car talks. Thank you very much, man. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. I appreciate the $5 super chat. That's very kind of you. Okay, let's see here. Buy watches, diamonds, precious jewels as a store of mobile cash rather than hold cash. Um, I could see the diamonds and maybe some jewelry, but I don't know, man. I'm a little leery about like actual precious stones, like having diamonds and like those actual stones separate. I don't know. Maybe it's just that I just don't know enough about it. But to me, I don't know if there's enough liquidity in that. And what I mean by that is like if I have a silver, like a 1 ounce silver round, and I need $20, I can take that 1 ounce silver round and probably in no time at all have it sold. Even if I was in a town that I didn't even know anybody in. Like if you couldn't find a pawn shop or a coin dealer, you could probably just go around from bar to bar and just ask people. It's like, hey man, I'm broke. I need gas money. I got this bullion piece here. Anybody interested in buying it? And you might have to take a little loss on it or something like that. But for the most part, you'll probably find somebody who will give you $20 for that thing. And then, it's really easy. Trying to find somebody to buy a diamond off of you, like I don't know anybody other than a jeweler who would buy a diamond from me. Like nobody. And I could be like I'm just don't have the network for it. So maybe if I built my network up of diamond people, I may have somebody I could sell a diamond to. But right now, I don't know anybody outside of a jeweler who would buy a diamond from me. Let's see here. Go to any pawn and receive a check wire. OnlyFans is much better way to waste $1,000. Wife or no wife? You want me to start an OnlyFans account? Is that what you're trying to say? Let's see here. Jewels are like sports cards, hyped value. Maybe, but well, I don't know. I guess I kind of look at baseball cards. They're kind of rare, though, right? I mean, once the year is over, there's only so much of them made, and they're a collectible item. Diamonds can keep being mined, or even now artificially produced. So, I don't know. Getting a divorce, selling single-family home in San Francisco. Should we try to hold or sell as soon as possible? I think if you're getting a divorce, then unless you and your wife are, I mean, or your husband or whatever, what was this? Colette. So I guess it would be your husband or your wife. I don't know. I mean, I guess if you're going through a divorce, then you'd probably want to get out of that, unless you are, still friends or something like that, and then you guys can handle a business deal together. But most couples I know who go through a divorce aren't really like keen on doing business deals together. I mean, I do know a few who are really good friends and want to continue to do business together. But for the most part, I find that most of them are a little like irritated with each other, or a lot irritated with each other, and don't really want to work with each other on making that kind of thing happen. So the quicker you could get out of that, I think would probably be better, um, in my opinion. But that's just because of the case that you happen to be in. And if you're talking about like money wise, then yeah, because you don't know, like when you finally get to a point where you're finally frustrated and you want shed of this thing, what the prices are going to be. You know what the price is going to be right now. So, if you're cool with it, I would say go for it. Hold paper gold and hedge with self-custody Bitcoin. If paper gold collapses, it strengthens the case for Bitcoin. That's an interesting thought. Damn good call, Wayne. What did Wayne say? Did I miss it, or did I already say that one? Oh well, I don't know which one it was. Hi, first time here. Prepper Nurse mentioned you. Well, thank you very much, Joyce, for coming on to the channel and checking out the live stream. I'm probably going to be out here. What time is it? Well, it's 30%, 6:40. I'll probably go another, say, 20 minutes or so. All right. Thank you very much, Joyce. I'm glad you're here. Let's see here. When things break down, how about trading cigarettes like the 1940s? How do you know which corporations are zombie corporations? Somebody has asked me that one before, and to be honest with you, I don't know. I don't really look into individual companies. I bet you there's probably some stock traders out there who would do a really good job of describing and trying to show what it is that you need to look for in order to find a zombie corporation. But basically, a zombie corporation is one that operates in the red, right? It's like, which is like a lot of companies out there. And it's not like it's a bad deal to operate in the red, which it is a bad deal, but as long as you can continue to take out ever increasing amounts of debt or be able to make your debt payments, then, you can continue to exist. But that's the thing, you're a zombie. You're not a true functioning profitable company. And there's a lot of people who act this way too. I mean, how many people do you know who drive nice cars, wear nice clothes, go out and hang out all over the place, go on vacations, but they're doing it all on credit? Those are zombie people. At some point, it's going to come to an end for them. Now, whether that means you can't buy new cars or clothes or all the other stuff and you have to live broke for a while in order to pay off all your debts, then you can, I guess, eventually get yourself out of a zombie position and into, being viable again. But for the most part, once you operate as a zombie and you conduct yourself as a zombie, that's it. That's what you do. You're never going to go back into any other way of life. Where should I buy physical silver and gold? I go to my local coin dealer. That's where I go, Clatsop Coin. And sometimes when you go to the coin dealers, like a store or a shop, you're not going to get as good a deal as if you could find online, because there's a lot of online brokers that you can go to that'll get you a better deal. But what I like about going to the coin dealer is that you have it physically in your hand right now. Like, you don't have to wait, you don't have to wonder, you don't know, like, is it actually going to make it? Is somebody going to steal it along the way? You go down to the store, you buy it, it's physical, it's in your hand, and you walk away, done deal, right? So I like to go to my local coin dealer to pick up silver and gold. Pawn shops are another good place. Just asking people, like, straight up, just, like, putting the word out there that you're buying silver bullion. You'd be amazed. I've had people come up to me saying, yeah, my uncle gave me these things when I was a kid or whatever, and they would have some like gold bullion, or not gold, but silver bullion that they would be willing to sell. So, like, I'd say the local dealers and the local places that you can go to, or local friends. But then after that, there are some good online dealers that you can find. Yeah. You should buy 10-ounce bars with these super chats. I've bought a few 10-ounce bars, and I have some 10-ounce bars of silver. But I think about, like, when it comes time to unload these things, I mean, if it ever, if silver goes to $500 an ounce, well, then you got a $5,000 ounce bar, which sounds really exciting and fun. But what if you don't want to give it up for $5,000? What if you only want like $1,000? Then you have to sell your whole like 10-ounce bar. So that's the one thing that kind of concerns me about like holding on to anything bigger than a 10-ounce bar is that what if it does really shoot up and you don't want to sell it all, you just want to sell parts of it? Well, then you have to get rid of all your like smaller stuff, and then you're stuck with all the big things, you know. But it's definitely, you know, having small like 1 ounce, even 10th ounce, you know, size, silver quarters and dimes. That's really good. And then, you know, getting into the bigger pieces, because, you know, maybe you do want to buy a car with it someday, and you don't want to pack around, you know, 100 ounces. You only want to hand over 10-ounce bars. You know, so it does make sense to have, you know, different sizes of it, but I'm more into 1 ounce and smaller. Hey, thank you very much, Robert Shields, for the $4.99 super chat. Do you think either Treasury or the Fed manipulates spot gold price so retail buyers, sellers are not incentivized to buy it? No. I don't think that. I don't think that, no. I think that there is manipulation within the markets, but I don't necessarily think that it's the government itself that's doing it, or any of those guys. I think it's, you know, individual, well, like, you know, JP Morgan, or, you know, some of those kind of style banks. They're the ones who I think are the ones who are manipulating the most out of it. I could see where, like, central banks would want to suppress the price of gold so that they could load up on it at times. But I don't think that that's actually something that they are actively attempting to do. If they recognize it happening and took advantage of it, that might be another story, which is a sort of a manipulation. But as far as like actively conducting a manipulation to try and keep it down, I don't think that. Roly Poly, thank you very much for the $33. Joe R is back with another account. Oh, I kind of wondered. I was wondering with the $33. So, is that what that is? Did you come back with a different account? Man, you're so awesome. Well, thank you, Roly Poly. Roly Poly hits me with. Is this fun for you? Do you just like seeing when you are an IT guy and you know how to troubleshoot? Thank you so much, bro. Thank you. I'm gonna ditch this. I'm sorry, bro, but you're just hitting this too much with the. I guess I don't know, what are you trying to do here? This Bitcoin NYZ earn money on the crypto. If you don't, you're gonna have to back off, bro. You're like spamming here, right? Let's see here. All-nighter, lots. Laugh out loud, thank you. Lay the ban hammer down. Almost everyone is having a good time with the SC. Yeah, they are. Joe won the mega. He's got money to burn. Blocked him several times. You talking about the this Bitcoin guy? Yeah. I mean, I don't mind you being here, bro, but you know, yeah, ease up on the spam stuff. The Bitcoin guy is a bot. Is it a bot or is it a guy? I mean, if he would actually say something in there, then maybe I won't. Or a girl, I don't know. Garage sales. Yeah. Yeah, it's a bot. Is it a bot? Okay, I'm just gonna delete him now. I'm sorry, bro, man. Come back as not a bot, and I'm gonna get out of here. How do I get rid of that damn message? Huh? It won't let me. Oh, there we go. Okay. Let's see here. Hide user from this channel. All right. Oh shit. All right. Where are we at here? Okay. Roly poly. Really? Spamming with no super chat. Sad. Yeah. I guess it's jeez, I can't talk. If he spam me like you did or hit me with the super chats, then I wouldn't mind the spam so much, right? What's up, brother? Hope you're having a good night. Hope gold goes up, baby. Yeah, I'm having a great night. You guys are awesome. I mean, I love hanging out here and talking and, you know, discussing different economic matters, and yeah, you guys are just awesome. So I love being out here. Okay, nothing you can do 8080 CD, but I don't think you're building at a bad time. Oh, you're addressing somebody else's comment. Okay. Roly poly, hit him with a G. It's almost there. I don't know. I mean, it's as good as if he had hit me with the G, man. Okay, how does one claim a U.S. currency bill that says I can claim it for silver? You can't. Those are the old silver certificates, and that has the idea of being able to swap out your silver certificate for an actual silver coin. Uh-oh. Turn my radio on. Didn't mean to. That has gone away. You can no longer do that. So the silver certificates are nothing more than just a regular old dollar. They're not interchangeable for a silver coin any like they used to be. Now, you also have to think like back in the day with silver certificates, they were like I like looking at silver certificates not as a dollar, but more as a claim ticket. A claim ticket to an actual dollar, which would be a silver coin, sitting on a shelf somewhere. And so that's how I kind of looked at it. But since silver dollars no longer exist, there's no way to go and claim your silver for it because it's a claim ticket for a silver dollar. It is a dollar, so you still get to spend it as a dollar, but it's just the face value of it. So now it holds, some sort of a premium as a collector's piece. And I have a few of them myself, but they really, unless they are like really nice condition or rare for some reason, like with a serial number on it or something that's rare, there's really like, they don't really have any kind of benefit as far as holding on to silver certificates. They are cool and they are a nice piece of history, and they probably fetch a premium as as time goes on, because of the rarity of them. But you're not going to be able to cash it in for silver. How much has Roly Poly donated this far? Did you win the lottery? I don't know. He's pushing $700 or more. It's amazing. Simon, could you reiterate, paraphrase what is going on with lumber prices now and in the future for viewers too? Um, so basically, what's happening right now, as far as I mean, there's a lot to talk about, but what I see right now is that there was a huge buildup of inventory happening prior to the Federal Reserve trying to raise the interest rates, right? So once they hiked the interest rates up, got everybody paranoid about mortgages and caused a slowdown in the housing market. With the slowdown in the housing market, the house prices may or may not be coming down significantly, has the builders now nervous about that, and they're backing off on a lot of the purchases that they were planning on making going into the future from here. Like the houses that they started, that lumber's already been purchased. But going from here, they're nervous about it. And the other people who are nervous about it are people like suppliers stocking up on that inventory. And then on top of that, if you don't have a lot of inventory moving, then the mills are going to be curtailing development. And that's really what I see happening right now, is that although we have like a building season taking place right now, there's not the big push for building that normally would happen during this time. So what we are going to see is that there's going to be less lumber moving through the system, and that inventory buildup is going to come back to the mill, and they're going to have to curtail development. On the other side of that, you also have up in Canada, you have the stumpage fees going up, which is going to be input costs going into the mills, and then the lumber futures prices coming down means that those British Columbia mills, or the mills up in Canada in general, are not going to be able to be as profitable from here on with those higher stumpage fees and less on the futures price. So what's going to end up happening? They're going to curtail development. With all this taking place going into winter, you're going to find inventory depletion taking place at a time when you would expect it to start rising. And that's really where I feel that the lumber prices are going to start moving up, is at the end of summer. So I don't know if I said all that right. I kind of stumbled a little bit there. Okay. Geez, you guys are so roly poly, holy moly, man. Another 199? You can't hit somebody with a G. I see that only 500 is acceptable. Take my paycheck and then some, UE. Roly poly is Joe R. I'm reaching my weekly maximum. Probably see you next week then. I know Roly Poly is Joe, and holy moly, Joe, thank you so much, man. I cannot. I can't express it, man. I mean, that is so cool of you to hit me up like with this. I mean, I can't thank you enough. If that's your paycheck for a month or for a week, man, I I doubt it is, but holy moly, man! Thank you so much for all the support for the channel, man. That is so cool of you. I can't thank you enough. Um, yeah. All right. Composite operator sent me pen 15. What's the pen? Where's that from? Not as much as Rolly, but I should be enough for a coffee. Well, thank you so much for the coffee, and I really appreciate it. You know, all the support you guys have for me is just, it's unreal. I mean, I can't thank you guys enough. I really can't. Joe R is the man for Rogan. Oh, is Joe? Oh, is R for Rogan? I get it. Um, what do you think about SS paying so much in cola and getting 3% on bonds? Um, I don't know. Like, you talking about the Social Security stuff? I don't know. Like, that whole thing just seems so damaged, and I don't even know anymore. Like, I just kind of taken the whole Social Security idea and I just kind of dismissed it now. It's just like another tax that I have on my paycheck that I don't really stress about or even think about. Um, you know, it's held as a carrot over so many people's heads, and you know, I just don't want, like, I guess I just don't want that thing in my life, like that you know, we're gonna take it from you or we're gonna contribute more or all that other stuff to it. Like, I think that the whole idea about Social Security was kind of like a decent idea in the beginning when they did it, and there was plenty of money for everybody and everybody contributed to it. And if they had kept it in like an escrow account or something like that, then I might feel a little bit better about it. But right now, I just think of it as a total damn Ponzi scheme, and whatever they're doing with it is a scam anyway. So I don't know. I wish I had a better opinion for you. I'm sorry. That's a good part of mortgage payment. You guys are too cool. Yeah, it is. Thank you. I mean, thank you so much, Joe. I mean, it's. I mean, I don't even. I'm lost for words. I can't even think of it. You know. Um. Let's see. Rolly and Joe are the reason why I don't think we are in a real recession now. I agree with Powell and Yellen. Wow. That was Dark Brother. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I have a feeling that we're moving towards recession, but the only difference is that, you know, what's the worst part of a recession? It's, you know, the high unemployment, everybody loses their job, and bankruptcies and foreclosures. So I don't see that happening. Like, I mean, I see it. Excuse me, guys. I see it possibly happening into the future, but I don't see it like taking place right now. Like, if we had high unemployment and we had a bunch of bankruptcies taking place, then people would not be like questioning whether or not we were in a recession. They would know it. But because there's a tight labor market at the same time that we have this slowing down in the economy, it's really difficult for people to try and understand, is this a recession or not? I mean, I think it is. I think we're slowing down. I never understood how people can be max Bitcoin, max gold, or max any asset. I can. You know, it was Warren Buffett who who said that you'll never be rich diversifying. It says you'll put your money all these different places. You can make a lot of money, but you'll never become extremely rich. It says you become extremely rich by putting all your money into one thing. And that's what he said. If that's how you become extremely rich. So I don't put all my money into one thing. I diversify, but I don't know if it's necessarily that I'm trying to become rich as much as it is that I'm trying to find stability and safety. You know, like, if that thing fails over there, it's no big deal to me because, you know, I got all this other things. Well, not all this, but I have other things going on. So I don't stress about, like, you know, whether or not, you know, the stock market goes up or house market goes up or if, like, you know, interest rates go up or anything. Like, I don't stress about any of that stuff. I just try to observe it for what it is and then trying to conduct my, you know, my behavior in a way that's best benefiting me and my family, you know. All right. Let's see here. I'm gonna give it probably another 10 minutes. Let's see. I got 23% on my phone here, so I'll give it like another 10, 15 minutes or so. All right. Hey, they're back. How did you get back already? I thought I deleted you. Didn't I remove you? Let's see. Hide user on this channel. All right, let's try that. All right. Unhide. Nope, I don't want to hide. I'll remove that. All right. Hopefully it stays gone. I don't know. Don't have a car charger. I don't, and I think actually the port for the cigarette lighter doesn't work. So he's just, I don't know. I can't get rid of him. He's just here. I don't know. I guess Bitcoin and YXYZ. I don't know. He's stuck here. I guess he has a bunch of accounts. What do you think of Bitcoin? I like Bitcoin. I mean, I do. Like, I don't know exactly what it is that I intend on doing with it, but I like the idea behind Bitcoin, and that the idea that you can transact with somebody on the other side of the world and not have anybody tell you that you can't do it, or that, that they're going to stop you from doing it or anything like that. That's pretty cool to me. I mean, I think that's like that is a very unique and useful tool or currency or something to have. Now, whether or not we actually get to a point where people are using Bitcoin on a regular basis, I don't know if that's going to happen. I do see where Bitcoin could eventually become like a digital gold, where corporations or nations are doing transactions in Bitcoin with each other. But as far as like the individual, like maybe buying a house or a car or something like that might be using Bitcoin. But I don't really see where Bitcoin is going to be used on a daily purchases. Um, Maybe if it has like the secondary layer system to it, like, a layer that you can interact with, and then eventually that layer will interact with the Bitcoin network, those kind of things. But other than that, I just like the idea behind Bitcoin. I like the just the concept of it, and then the ability to have something like that I can give to my kids later on in the future, once they grow old. I think that's pretty cool. So all those are the reasons why I like Bitcoin. I don't think it's necessarily going to be like you know I don't look at it as like this awesome thing that a lot of other people look at it as, is like, going to be the currency of choice of the world at someday. I don't know about that. If it is, cool, but I don't really see that happening. I just really like it for the concept that it is, and the fact that, like, everybody seems to be moving to a digital ledger platform, and that's where it started, was with Bitcoin. I missed out on a lot of opportunities to make a lot of money by holding Bitcoin, and I didn't do it because I was just buying such small little pieces of it. So now I've decided, it's just like, well, you know what? I'm just going to be a holder of Bitcoin. I'm eventually going to try and get to owning one Bitcoin, to have like possession of one. Once I get there, I don't know if I'll be buying any more. I think maybe it's just this goal of getting one whole Bitcoin, and then having it, and just owning it forever. Man, Roly Poly, that's it, man. You hit me up to 1,000 today on these super chats. I cannot believe it. I have cash, silver, and gold on hand, but I see that as an emergency plan along with food. I grow my own food, etc., not at the level of chickens. I am waiting to buy a house. But people are insane in buying a house without looking at it in rural Pennsylvania. Um, yeah, I've heard a lot of people are buying houses sight unseen, and that that is crazy for me. I mean, I did only look at one house before I bought the one that I did, but it was like everything fit the criteria. It was like, I don't know how that happened, but it was like everything about it was what I was looking for. Close. It was pretty close to what I was looking for, at least for the house part of things. And there was so few houses for sale out there that everything else didn't really seem appealing to me, except for the one that I went and looked at. And I was also on a very limited time, so I was almost rushed into it. I was rushed into it. But anyway, I agree with you. I agree with you, Roly Poly. So many people just like, they rush into, they buy these houses sight unseen and rush into it, and then realize they didn't like the house. And that is a bummer. Okay. Let's see. Is there any other questions in here? Well put, Jose. Let's see here. Many altcoins get hacked, but you can't hack Bitcoin. Yeah, that's true. I mean, I've heard of a lot of other like cryptocurrencies that have like just ultimately failed. They were pump and dump schemes. They were just scams to begin with, or whatever. That's the other reason why I like Bitcoin as much as I do, is because of the security aspect of it. They know how to hack cryptocurrencies. You got to take over 51% of the computers. So if you can take over 51% of the miners who mine Bitcoin, then you can change the ledger, make it whatever you want. But the idea that you're going to take over 51% of those miners and hack Bitcoin, it would take such a coordinated effort and so much power, like literally like electricity, that it's just not like, is it possible? Yeah, but it's not feasible. It's not going to happen. It's not likely. All right. When people truly need to keep their rent afloat and put dinner on the table, they won't be buying Bitcoin. Yeah. Who else will be keeping Bitcoin afloat? Institutions, possibly. Yeah, I can get that. When you can control your own money, BTC, or you can have your fiat debased and devalued by corporate politicians, your choice. Yeah, I mean, that's one of the reasons why, I hold gold and silver and cash and Bitcoin and try to be as much aware of the system that's happening. Like, because to me, like, if fiat currency fails, then, at least you got gold and silver, right? But if all those things continue to exist, well, then you got Bitcoin that's awesome for doing transactions. If, the dollar strengthens, and you might want to have some dollars, because at the end of the day, everybody wants dollars, right? That's the one thing that you need to get out of your debts, and it's the one thing you need if you want to buy something, is you actually need dollars. So having gold, silver, Bitcoin, and dollars is like, to me, I can't think of any other place I would rather be, as far as like trying to save or secure myself. If you want to try and, produce wealth, or, try and earn some money or something, then you have to take on risk. And by taking on risk, I mean like investing into things, investing in a company or into bonds or something like that. I don't really think there's a lot of risk when you buy gold and silver. There is a monetary risk to it, where the price could come down, but it'll never change. I mean, the physical item of what it is will always be a ounce of silver. That will never change about it. And then when it comes to like fiat currencies, especially when it comes to the dollar, I know a lot of people look at the Federal Reserve and the money printer go burr and say that's going to destroy the dollar. But I look beyond that. I look outside of the United States and how much demand for the dollar is outside of the United States, and all the contracts that were written outside of the United States that are doing dollars. And it just leads me to believe, man, dollars are not going to go fading away anytime soon. And then that leaves just the Bitcoin. And I've already talked about enough reasons why I like that. So that's where I go. I look at those things as secure savings, and silver has little downside risk to it. Bitcoin has a lot of risk to it, both up and down. So, do you grow your own food? I grow my own food, although this year I did not do very well with the garden. It was a horrible, horrible season. It rained so bad during that initial part of the season in which that you want to get your plants in the ground, you want to get the seeds started, you want to get that initial boost, because there's a time at the beginning of the growing season, of the time of the gardening season, that you got to get your plants into the ground to get the most yield out of it, the biggest, return off the plants. And it's funny to think, and I know this because of this experiment that we used to do with peas, right? And so my buddy, he had this trellis that he would grow peas along, and this trellis was like probably, I don't know, 15 feet or so. And he would plant like 3 feet of peas, and then the next week he would plant another 3 feet of peas, and then do that, for a month and a half. And then it was fun to watch those plants start up, because the peas, you get a little plant that would start, and then kind of go down the line. And so you would think like, okay, so the first week that he planted would be like the tallest plants, like that would be the most that would grow, and then as the seasons go on, you would find the other plants trying to catch up with it. But that's not what would happen. What you would find is that there would be 1 week that you planted that those plants did far better than any of the other plants did, whether you planted them before or after that week. There was 1 week in particular that they did extremely well. They grew bigger plants, they yielded more fruit or more beans or peas or whatever it was. it just did so much better. And so it's a matter of a timing issue when it comes to gardening. It's not just a matter of putting plants in the dirt and then expecting the best from it. It really is a matter of planting at the right time. And this year, we did not have that right time. By the time it came to a point where you could actually work the dirt and not be messing around with a mud pit, it was almost too late. So we put some starts in the ground. We got some seeds in the ground. We got a few plants going. There's a few things that are doing okay, but it wasn't by far not nearly even remotely close to what we wanted to do this year. And a lot of people were complaining about that. So, as far as like the good, awesome garden, we didn't get it this year. Bitcoin is great for savings. Buy it with money you do not need, care about it, or do not need or care about, and forget about it for a while. Yeah, and that's where I like dollar cost averaging into Bitcoin, because then it doesn't really matter how much you paid for it, or you don't even know how much you paid for it. It doesn't matter where it's at. You just buy like $50 a week or $50 a month or something like that. And do the same thing with silver. I in dollar cost average into this stuff. When it shoots up to all-time highs, you'll be happy. You'll be happy with it. And people ask how much money you make off it, and you'd be like, I don't know. It doesn't matter how much I paid into it. It just matters how many I have. That's the only thing that's important. I like shorting the altcoins. I could see where shorting the altcoins would probably do really well. Please, God, do not put your money into blockchain. I think it's a little too late. BTC down 50% in 2022. Dollar cost average into canned foods. Yeah. That's definitely, a way of prepping and survival is to be on the hunt for good priced foods, especially if it's canned, something that you can, keep preserved for a long time. I mean, when things go on sale, like we load up, when I see like, a chicken or beef, or beef hardly ever goes on sale, but when chicken goes on sale or something like that and you can get it really cheap, I have a stand-up freezer. We'll load it up. We'll like fill it up with as much as we can, to take advantage of that. And then, also like my wife, she cans really well, and she really knows how to can. And so like if you bring 100 pounds of anything to her, she'll be like, no problem. And she will hack that stuff up, cut it up, put it into jars. And by the end of the day, it'll be in the pantry, sealed up, ready to eat. And I mean, having a skill like that and not having the, just having the confidence that you can deal with 100 pounds of something. Somebody says, man, I got 100 pounds of fish. I'm going to bring it over in a cooler right now. You'd be like, yeah, bring it right now. Like, I can deal with that. Like, that's pretty cool. Most people would be like, well, I don't want 100 pounds of fish, man. I'll take like 10 pounds of fish or something. But to be able to process that much of it, that's a good skill to have. I encourage everybody to learn to can. Even if you don't live in like, the country or something where like people can all the time, like you live in the city or in an apartment or something like that, it doesn't mean that you can't can. You get yourself a pressure cooker, get yourself some jars, lids, rings, and then when you see something go on sale, like, you find, like I said, chicken goes on sale. We'll go buy a bunch of that and then spend the afternoon canning that food up and then store it in, under the bed or something. Bitcoin's still the best performing asset in history. Well, I guess since it started from zero, yeah. Bitcoin is not a store of value. Will every single vendor, lumber, Walmart, 7-Eleven, Dollar Tree, pivot to accepting Bitcoin with their current POS system? That's point of sale system, for those who don't know. Come on. Okay. That's a very legitimate question, right? So let's kind of take that into consideration for just a second. Is Bitcoin going to be accepted by stores? Absolutely not. It's not going to, because the transactions are just far too slow. It just won't happen. But there could be a secondary layer system that can operate using Bitcoin that can do transactions very fast and make it useful, and stores can accept it. So it's not like the Bitcoin itself will be used, but a secondary layer system, which is still a third party when you think about it. I mean, I know the secondary layer systems that they make are blockchain based too and stuff like that. I'm not but still, like the idea behind Bitcoin not being used for transactions, there's workarounds that are going to happen to make it useful. I mean, you can think about it like in the sense that, every single store accepts dollar bills for the most part, but hardly anybody uses well, I shouldn't say hardly. A lot of people don't use dollar bills, they just use like a card. Well, that card could be Bitcoin, for the most. Anyway, Joe, man, another 33. Good Lord, you're so awesome, man. This is exhausting making different accounts. I live in an apartment in rural Pennsylvania. I know, weird considering it rural. Man, that is so awesome. I cannot believe how much you have donated to the channel today. That is just incredible. Um, Gosh, all right, let's see here. Are you talking about stable coins? Stable coins have been causing many people to lose their money recently. No, I am not talking about stable coins, right? Although the Federal Reserve has been talking about stable coins and their usefulness, so that's something to kind of keep in mind, right? But no, I am not necessarily talking about stable coins, although stable coins could do the job. I'm talking more like Lightning Network and things that are going to be like that. Um, but then again, like the stable coins could do the job. Like if you could put some trust behind it. I mean, ultimately, in the end, that's a third party claim, right? I mean, you're hoping that you're going to be able to transfer your stable coin over into a real dollar. Whether that actually happens or not, that's a whole other story. The system that they're setting up with it, I think that could work, right? I mean, I think that could be a possibility, but it's not trustworthy, and I certainly wouldn't put my trust into it, not at this time. The Federal Reserve is looking at it as a possibility, so where is it going to go? What is it going to end up being? Who knows? Paid off house, best investment ever. Yeah, I could see. Well, just being out of debt in general is like the best investment that you can do. In fact, that's when I was first like trying to get out of debt and learning to, or trying to learn to invest. I don't know if I'm actually learning to invest yet, but as I was trying to figure out what it is that I need to do with my money, I'm listening to all these different investors out there. And one of them says, if you are in debt, there is no better return on your investment than to get out of debt. And I thought about that. It was just like, that's true. And so once I thought about this, like, because you have to invest in something that's going to pay you beyond the interest rate that you're paying on your debt. So you might as well just pay your debts off and not have that interest payment that you have to make. So that return on your capital, as far as making a debt payment, is much better than trying to invest beyond, or trying to get a return in your investment that's beyond the debt payment that you're making. So paying off debt is by far the best way that you can invest your money. The only thing that I would think differently from that is if you have such a low interest rate on your debt, like the 3.25% on your home loan, that if you could find an investment that pays, 13%, well, then you got a 10% gain that's coming off of that instead of paying off your debt. So that would be the only thing that I would say would not pay off your debt first, is if you had an incredibly low interest rate. But yeah, other than that, get out of debt. Get out of debt. Not only does it make you feel a lot better about everything in the world, you just don't have that stress of it, and then it gives you the freedom to do other things with your life. So yeah, get out of debt. There's no better feeling. Jeez, Joe, man, you must be rich, bro. That's the only thing I could say, is you must have a lot of money. Thank you so much for the $99 super chat. I am supporting what I like, not a channel. Okay, well, I appreciate that, man. That actually makes me feel a lot better too. I think you are a good man. As soon as I see you start liking money and status, it will be taken away. My money is not important because you are killing it in real life. Keep it up and keep up the great work. Thank you, Joe, man. That that comment really really touches me, because it's kind of the way I feel. When I started this channel, I never really thought, I knew like I knew I could make money with YouTube. Like I knew that was a possibility out there. But when I started the channel, I didn't start it to make money, and I started it to learn. I started it to have conversations with people who wanted to learn about economics. That was the whole point of the channel, was to have a conversation, to start the discussion. And when it started taking off, and I realized that, you know, this thing is popular, like people really like this channel, I thought to myself, okay, well, it's going to start making money at some point. Don't change anything. Don't change anything about who you are or what you're doing on the channel. Just keep going as if the money isn't there. And you can't do that. Like, you know, once you start getting the money, you can't just ignore it like it doesn't exist. So I thought, okay, well, what are you going to do with it? Yeah. So I thought, well, let's make life better, right? Let's get out of debt. Let's get some family out of debt. Let's, you know, start enjoying some of the, you know, things around, you know, let's go out to eat. Let's, you know, actually, you know, enjoy our lives a little bit more. But I didn't go like, you know, crazy with it. Like, I'm saving the money. I'm anticipating what it is that I'm going to do for the family, like, you know, kids and education and stuff like that. These are the type of thoughts that, like, I never really had before. I mean, like, you know, I always thought about like kids going to college and stuff, but I didn't think about how it was that I was going to be able to afford anything like that. So now that, you know, this channel is producing money, I think about things like that. Not like, I mean, I think about the Camaro, but that's just for fun. Like, I don't really, I mean, I don't have any plans to go buy a Camaro, although I would love to. You know, but it's true, and I thank you, Joe. You're very awesome, man. Hey, thank you, Darren Overback, for the $5. Really appreciate that, man. What does it say here? What is the deal with the hardwood plywood prices? Yeah, that is pretty up there, isn't it? I couldn't believe it. I used to sell like a sheet of like 3/4 inch birch plywood for like $80 a sheet, and now it's like 100 and I don't know, 140 or something like that. And the only thing I can really think of on that one is that there's really not a lot of turnover when it comes to that type of plywood, like the hardwood plywoods. When you have like CDX, like a 1/2 inch CDX plywood in comparison, 1/2 inch CDX is like a lot of volume on that. It gets like, as booming takes or housing takes off, then you end up going through a lot of CDX. And that particular plywood is used for all kinds of stuff. I mean, you want to build a box to ship something away in, or board up a window, or, you know, just throw it down in the back of the truck because, you know, you just want something back there to keep from beating up the bed of the truck or something. 1/2 inch CDX is by far the most popular plywood out there. And so when you have a lot of turnover of it, it makes room for there to be room to move. Like, you know, as far as like the new stock coming in is going to be cheaper than the old stock. But when it comes to like hardwood plywoods and stuff like that, there's not a lot of turnover to it. So as the production of this stuff becomes available, it's going to be stuck at those higher prices. I mean, give it time and you would find that the hardwood prices would come down to, you know, reflect the rest of the plywoods that are out there. But for the most part, you're probably going to see them stay elevated for quite some time. I mean, you know, it may not even come back down to the normal-ish price, you know, as the demand for it just keeps it elevated like that. Um, yeah, it's hard. It's hard to like, you know, predict what it is that hardwood plywoods are going to do. All right, I'm starting to fumble my words a little bit, so I guess I'm getting tired out here, guys. Yui, no, okay. Yui, you know, we bought a church. Those pews are turning into our cabinets. Oh, hey, Miles, that is brilliant. That is a great way to make use of those old pews. Because what would you do with a bunch of benches like that? I mean, it would be kind of fun to have, but then like, what do you have? What do you need all this seating for? So remaking that stuff into cabinets, dude, that's beautiful. I love that. Loud Camaro with exhaust and a cam. Yeah, man. See, that's what I'm talking about. Like, you know, just something badass to drive around. Yeah, that looks so good in a Camaro. All right, those ball sacks under his eyes, man, that's rugged, bro. Are you talking about me? Am I getting tired? Ugh. All right. All nighters on it tonight. All right. Don't buy Bitcoin for your kids. You sound like your parents buying savings bonds for college for you. Um, I I don't know, man. Like, I mean, I'm gonna buy some Bitcoin for my kids. It's not the only thing I'm buying for my kids. I mean, I started off buying silver for them, so buying Bitcoin, and I have some treasuries for them too. Like, I mean, I have some savings bonds. So I mean, I I mean, not a lot, but I do have some for them. So, I mean, I'm buying them savings stuff, and Bitcoin's going to be one of them. I mean, it's going to happen. You know? But most likely, it's most of it's probably gonna end up being silver. That's what I'm gonna end up giving to the kids. Yeah. My prepping is freaking my wife out. How can I keep my family calm and not freak them out while preparing for the worst case? Um, don't talk negatively about why you're doing it. Talk only positively about it. And if you talk positively about it all the time, like never have any negative reasonings for it, then the people around you will also begin to think positively about it as well. So if you're like, man, I'm prepping because the whole world's coming to an end, well, they don't want to hear about how the whole world's coming to an end. I'm not necessarily talking about your family. I'm just talking about people in general. And so if the people don't want to hear about how the world's going to become this negative place, and they certainly don't want to hear about how they can prepare for a negative world, right? So you have to kind of change these things around to make it a, a more beneficial to the people around you or your family or the reasonings that you have for this prepping. And so like kind of like, for example, I mean, just because it is a negative thing doesn't mean that it has to continually be that way, right? So you can say, wow, the price of food is really going up. I would like to take on this skill of canning so that, we can be prepared in case we come across an abundance of food. And it'd be a fun skill to have. Maybe we can learn to make jam. Let's go berry picking. Like, let's go see if we can forage for something that we can and learn to make a hobby out of this. And it'll be like a fun afternoon for us to just have something to occupy our day. So pretty soon here you have this prepping mentality, but it's actually being moved into like a hobby or just an event to try and like, just be entertaining for the family. And so instead of being like, we need to do this because the whole world's coming to an end, it's more like, hey, there's this positive, fun hobby that we can do. And guess what? We're learning to forage and we're learning to can and we're learning to do all this other stuff along the way. We're prepping, right? But really, we're just having fun. So that's the way you kind of get the other people on board with it. Remember, like, and I'm going to leave you guys with this because I got to go. And you guys have heard me say this a lot in the past. When you have, like, in your thoughts, in your actions, in your beliefs, in your wordings, everything that you do, like everything that you exude out there, when you show up for work, even when you're driving by yourself in your car, like the way you handle yourself in the traffic and everybody around you. If you have this negative attitude, if you have this fear, if you have this anger happening, what ends up going on is that you have this energy inside of you, right? And everybody has this energy. You know it. When you walk into a room and everybody's in a good mood and laughing and joking, you feel it as soon as you walk in. Same thing when you walk into a place that's sad. You're going to feel that sadness before anybody even says anything. So if you have this energy that's within you and you're angry and you're fighting and you're mad and you're frustrated and all the other stuff that goes with it, you move this energy out to your extremities because you're ready to fight or flight, right? So you're running or you're fighting or you're just like, you just whatever, you're tensed up and ready to deal with whatever's coming. And that's a negative energy that you're putting out there. What's going to come back is negative energy. You're going to have people who are going to react to that negatively, right? They're going to want to fight. They're going to want to be argumentative and, frustrated and everything else that goes with it. So you have to channel that stuff. You have to bring it into your core. You bring it into your center and you find peace and happiness and love and just like that positive energy that comes with it. And you think of positive things and you talk in a positive way and you exude positive energy around you. Well, then positive things start coming back towards you, right? Because people want to be attracted towards positive things. So the people who are positive and are going to lift you up and enhance your life, well, they're going to start finding you, right? And they're going to start coming towards you. So you have to make sure that you stay in this, like, I'm not afraid, I'm not worried, I'm not stressed, I'm not afraid. Like, that's the key to it, is just don't be afraid. And then you move that into, I'm content, I'm happy, I'm at peace, and your whole life will change. Like, the negative things that you find coming towards you will dissipate. They won't be negative anymore. They won't even get near you. And the positive things will start flowing. And then pretty soon you'll have opportunities and options and, good things will start happening from that. All right, I'm going to go. Uneducated Economist. Thank you, everybody, for the super chat. Thank you, Joe, roly-poly. Man, I don't know what to say. You guys are the best. And I hope everybody has a great night. Uneducated Economist, you guys let me know.